Welcome to Binge Theory, the coolest corner on the internet. I'm your humble host, Julian, and this is the Fantastic Four of panels. With us today, we have Brianna.
Hello.
We have Kenny.
Hello.
And Logan.
Good afternoon, somewhere.
And this is a special two-parter. We're going to be doing Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we're also going to be doing Zack Snyder's The Justice League. So I hope you brought your capes and your spandex because we're going to be doing all superheroes the entire show. Let's first start off with Falcon and Winter Soldier, because that was the season 1, episode 1, on Disney Channel. We had such a great time watching WandaVision, and I know there's going to be a lot more of these Marvel ones in the slate going down, probably forever. I'm having a feeling they're just going to be, repeating themselves like people watch, Christmas Story during the holidays. It's going to, just be a constant thing. Starting off, how did we like Falcon and Winter Soldier? Brianna, what was your first take on it?
I liked it. I guess, there's not really a ton to say. It sets up so much because there's the two characters, so it kind of does a good job of kind of filling you in, catching you up, where they are. So, I mean, as far as a good first episode, I thought it was pretty good.
Absolutely. No, it's starting to put a lot of little things in there right out of the gate. Unlike WandaVision, where it was very kind of what's happening, this kind of is, where you are, how the story's progressing. But I got a lot of things to touch base on, though. Logan, what were your thoughts on this one?
It was fine. Not really much happened. Not really much was thrilling. It was, not entirely all unexpected. I mean, again, I think the only thing that I'm looking forward to and did enjoy was just getting to spend some more time with those characters who haven't been the focal points of their own movie. So really going, we didn't get to see, Wanda and Vision much before. We didn't get to see, Falcon was introduced and Winter Soldier kind of had a movie about him, but not really. It was more Captain America's movie. So it's nice to spend some more time with the more intimate beats with the character.
Absolutely. And like I said in the last episode, Disney's got the formula. They just know how to take a character, make them really interesting, and then build a story around them, as opposed to what we'll probably be talking about later on this episode. But anyway, Kenny, what were your thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I liked it. I thought it was a good intro, first episode. Like Brianna said, we get to see the two different characters, so we know where they're at, what's going on. I think it sets a lot of things up. So, there's a lot of questions to be asked. And I think I posted this in our group chat. But am I the only one that when they introduced the new Captain America at the end that saw Carl from the movie Up?
He did have an oddly square head.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that could be another connected universe right there.
Yeah.
The reason he was so sad and Up is because nobody took him seriously for real as Cap.
You know what's so sad is I forget now who's playing the new Cap, because I'm looking at the cast right now.
he's like third build on there. It's like David something.
Okay, it's not Wyatt Russell, which is good.
Oh yeah. Maybe that is. Hang on, I'll tell you.
Oh no, if it is Wyatt Russell, that's not going to be good.
Yep, it is.
Okay, yeah, Wyatt Russell, for those of you that don't know, is the son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. Yeah, he's actually a pretty good actor. I think they were talking about putting him in a Escape from New York reboot, which he actually really looks like his dad. I mean, he's got that whole kind of a swagger, snarl lip, he's actually not bad. I don't think he's been given a lot of opportunity to shine, but I think we're going to be hearing stuff from him. I don't know if he's going to be good in this role, but I don't know anything about this role.
I don't think it's going to be a long role.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just playing. I'm going to guess at what I think the plot is going to be for the early part. I mean, obviously, just for some of the beats, and I wrote down some of these just so I can keep track. It starts off, first of all, with him going on a mission. Really cool, because that is exactly how Winter Soldier started off, with Cap going on a mission. This time it's Anthony Mackie's Falcon going on a mission. And guess who he comes up against? The LAF, which is led by George St. Pierre, which was the same guy who was lead. Yeah, the MMA fighter, GSP.
Or not Beltrot, Batroc. That's a
Beltrot, yeah.
Or, yeah. So.
Exactly, same guy. So, a little bit of a parallel there. I don't think there's any mistakes. And, great. I would say this, they really have some good fight choreography, especially with the utilization of his tech armor, his wings, and how he utilizes that not only in offense, but in defense. There were some scenes where he was using it like a shield, and also where he was using the thruster to kind of hurl himself forward when he's doing an offensive attack. And I did think it was a little, I'll call it the Aquaman stroke of luck, where he's the flying guy and all the villains have wingsuits and they jump out and they're flying. So you get to have a aeronautical fighting scene.
I literally wrote down flying squirrel fight.
Yes.
Yes.
That's literally
exactly
what it looks
what it
like. Because they were all just like flying through the air, just, with their suits. Yeah.
In totally implausible ways. And they have helicopters just waiting for them so they can fly into one helicopter, out of it.
And still, they did it.
Yeah. It was unrealistic. But I will tell you this, some of the scenes were, at least I'm thinking they were literal skydiving shots. It
looked like it. They looked pretty practical, at least some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Not all of the fighting scenes, obviously, but there was a scene where they hijacked a military guy and strapped him to the back. And then they had like a camera and you're seeing him like holding on for dear life, like.
I mean, I guess they could do like wire work against a green screen, but that would still have to be pretty high up, like pretty rigged. Yeah. So. Yeah. And they could, some of the best, and I obviously this was probably, well, you know what? We may have to look at the effects on this, but remember in Iron Man 3 where they fell out of Air Force One?
Yeah.
They were all falling and Iron Man had to kind of, that looked, I mean, it looks so, realistic. I know it's not, they don't have multiple people. Maybe they did. I don't know. I'd have to look at the effects on that, but to that point, let's quick look at this roster. Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, of course, and Danielle Brühl playing, Zemo, and Emily Van Camp is Sharon Carter. She's going to be back, and I'm really excited to see her and what she brings to it. Wyatt Russell, yada yada yada. Now Malcolm Spellman as the creator. I don't know what that means. Please don't tell me he's the creator of the show. I've never heard them refer to that. I've heard of producers and directors.
Usually it's like showrunner.
Malcolm Spellman is the creator and writer of the show.
No, I'm pretty sure that he's a character called the creator, and I'm going to go with that. That's how I see it. Yeah, just like the leader.
We'll see how that works out for you.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, where's the creator at? Is he going to make his debut? But anyway, so they did the first mission, which I thought was actually pretty good. Again, we're talking streaming TV. This is not cinema, but it was on that level as far as I'm concerned. That fighting sequence, and then of course he gives up the shield at the Smithsonian, which was pretty cool and endearing. And that's when Don Cheadle shows up. Again, they're just tying into all the the MCU. War Machine, but I think he's like a colonel now or something. And he was like, why didn't you take up the mantle? And he's like, yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's for me. And so he goes to Louisiana. And I love how they start hinting at the fact that superhero gigs don't pay all that well.
Mm.
Yep.
Because he's literally trying to get a loan and
they're like, you haven't really done much in 5 years.
Yeah, they also brought in the blip. They said, I haven't existed for 5 years, so yeah, my employment record's a little spotty, and yeah, that'll do it. Here's a funny thing is when he did say, because the bank owner was the loan manager was kind of fawning all over him, like, oh, I know who you are, you're Falcon, and can I get a selfie and all of these accolades, all of this fame, and he couldn't.
Then
get
sorry, I can't approve
yeah.
your loan.
You're still not gonna approve your loan.
Yeah, it reminded me of that old saying about like MTV. YouTube being YouTube famous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Being YouTube famous is like being Monopoly rich.
Although I feel like, look at NASCAR. He's got plenty of room on those wings for sponsorships and endorsements.
That reminds me of Mystery Men. Did anybody see?
I think that's the one that had like Ben Stiller
Yep.
and
Yep.
All right. That's the one I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the characters, his name was he was played by Greg Kinnear, and his entire outfit was literally Pepsi and Pizza Hut and logos. I mean, why not? It also reminds me of The Boys. Because in The Boys, they're literally doing movies about themselves, playing themselves in movies about themselves, and they have corporate sponsorships and they do events and blah blah blah. Anyway, so he's broke, and his sister and him are losing the house down in Louisiana, can't get a loan, and that just tells his situation, and he's kind of like down in the dumps. And then of course, there's a faction. I forget what they were called. They have a hand over the globe, so I don't know. I'm assuming there's like the reach or the hand or something like that. Long story short, they're
The foot.
What was that?
I said the foot.
Yeah, exactly. Like in
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles. But what's funny is they reminded me a lot of the villains in Iron Man 3. So there's a lot of echoes here, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna fault them for lack of creativity, because it's a grounded story, and
It could be that it's done on purpose.
Well, I do think they're either they're capturing the beats because they like them, or they're maybe they are touching back on some earlier properties. So he's Bucky is in therapy. So let's talk about that and his post-traumatic stress.
As part of his was it parole or
conditions of his
his release.
Yeah, or pardon.
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 He was pardoned for trying to overthrow the country. I wonder what that's like. These are not related to anything that's going on in society.
Nothing at all.
Brianna, what were your thoughts about it? And I really liked this, especially in the climate today. And just to be real for a second, they portrayed it when he was in his Winter Soldier mode prior to waking up. He had assassinated an Asian man, and that character, I think he's gonna he may be from another episode, another movie, I forget, but he befriended his father in a means of making amends, and he also has a love interest, who's an Asian woman, and I'm just so glad that these are middle of the road, just people characters, and not over the top or characteristics or the Hollywood Asian. They're just people living their lives, and I just really appreciated that, especially in this current climate. I think we need what I call dull representation. You don't have to be superhuman or subhuman, just human. But I did like the storyline, how he killed his son, and then after he's trying to make amends, and that's part of his therapy, almost like the 12 steps of a recovering alcoholic. He's just trying to take care of the father and just friend him and all that stuff. And what's funny is they're kind of close to the same age. I mean, he's 106, the Winter Soldier, so he's I guess got a lot in common with the old guy when they're talking about kids and the music, and he's like, yeah, I don't get it either. Kenny, what were your thoughts on that storyline about Winter Soldier, his PST, I'm sorry, PTSD.
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD.
No,
And trying
I
to
think
make amends.
so. Actually really like that aspect, because they're not shying away from it. Then we tend to see in in the military that PTSD gets ignored. It's more acknowledged now than it was in the past, but it's still played down. So I think it's good that they're not shying away from it. And I will say, like, the stance that Bucky's character is taking, the whole "I didn't have a nightmare, I don't know what you're talking about," that is very typical of a lot of soldiers that deal with PTSD in today's military. Is they don't want to talk about it, and there's various reasons. Could be because they think it shows weakness. They are trying to forget. They don't want to drag things up. They don't want to work through it. So I really like that aspect of it. And I actually, you could feel, I thought they did a really good job of creating that mood when he went to go. Yeah, he went to the old man's apartment, basically, and I think we're meant to assume he was going to tell him about his son, and he doesn't. But I could really feel that moment. I think they did a really good job there.
There was a lot of tension. Yeah,
I really like how they set this up. But what's interesting is one of the things that Bucky says in his therapy session reminded me of what Logan said when we were discussing WandaVision, about how Wanda never got to process all those feelings. Bucky says basically the same thing in that therapy session. Like, when he woke up in Wakanda, he went straight to fighting and, got blit, came back and went straight to fighting. He never had a chance to process anything. And so that really made me think about how Logan brought it up there in WandaVision. So I think it's really cool how they're setting all this up.
And yeah, I remember exactly what he said. He was like, literally, since he was in his 20s, he was frozen, woke up to kill, and then put back to sleep. So he's been mentally just seeing carnage for
90 years.
Yeah, 90 years, just murder, 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 murder. And that's all he's ever known. And then all of a sudden, he said, I had a moment of quiet or calm in Wakanda. Yeah. And then that went away. But what they did, also a callback when he had the nightmare or the flashback when he killed the Asian man. And it's a nightmare, and he's waking up and he's sleeping on the floor. And that's a callback to when Captain America went into group therapy with Sam, and Sam approaches him and said, "It feels like a marshmallow, doesn't it?" He goes, "What? You can't sleep in a bed. It feels like a marshmallow. You go right down to the floor." And I would assume that they're just so used to sleeping on uncomfortable conditions, but it was a callback to that, and I think we're going to see a lot of those nuanced references to the other series and things like that. Logan, what were your thoughts? I mean, story-wise, do you think it's engaging? I mean, I know they didn't go into a lot, but what they are showing you, what are your thoughts?
Story-wise, I guess I'm not quite sold yet. I mean, it was fine. It was certainly well done and well shot, but I don't think, there was certainly no wow factor from the first episode that I saw. It was kind of like, okay, I'm invested in this because of what I know of the characters from their movie experiences, and that's why I'll watch it. But if I were just watching this first time, maybe it was well done enough to watch another one or two and see where they're going. And if there's only 6 episodes, sure, I'll watch 6. It's not a big deal. But it didn't hook me. There wasn't a catch quite like, even just the novelty of the TV show tropes of WandaVision. That was like, even if I just saw that first one and knew nothing about it, it would be like, wow, that was so well done. Like, I kind of want to see more of what they're going to do. Are they going to do more like this? Like, there was nothing here that really hooked me like that. And I think to some extent too, they're replaying things a little bit, and it'll be interesting. I think it'll be good after this series to have a hopeful break from this with Loki, and then they're not just trying to explore, trauma and different guilt or dealing with things after the blip and being gone or not being gone or whatever as the case might be. But I mean, in some ways, Bucky kind of did the same thing Wanda did, in that instead of just, making amends by giving, Yuri's the solace that he needed of, how did your son die? Well, I was a programmed soldier and I killed him. There you go. You're no longer wondering. And he can start that catharsis and healing, which was what kind of triggered him in that conversation, I think, with the bartender, was that, he's never been able to move on. So Bucky was like, oh, I'm going to do it. Oh, I'm going to do it. But then what did he go and do? He befriended Yuri instead of just telling him and making amends, and has made the whole thing worse. Very similarly to the way Wanda created a whole family instead of just letting go of Vision, and now she had to let go of the whole family. And if you listen to some of that, when Yuri was talking about the death of his son, there was that Winter Soldier score, that musical piece callback from the movie, that was just like, he's still, in that's still haunting him. He's still dealing with all of those repercussions of both that and being blipped out of existence for 5 years. So I think, there's a lot of, I appreciate and I like that Marvel's not shying away from exploring that trauma and trying to deal with that on screen, because, it's they're treating the TV world like a reality. And that's, I think, the novelty of this, and that really opens any series they do up into these just incredible stories, because they're treating them like real life, like how people would actually have to deal with them. But he made it worse for himself, and it's very familiar in that way to the same kind of thing that Wanda did.
It's almost like the heroes aren't always doing the heroic thing. Sometimes they do the selfish thing.
They know how to do the big heroic things. They know how to save the world. They know how to go out and put their life on the line, but how to deal with life, how to make the hard choice and tell a good person something that's going to utterly destroy them. They can't bring themselves to do that and see that, that might be the catharsis that he needs, or that's just the right thing to do, even if it makes you the villain, because, who knows why in their individual psyches and heads. But yeah, it's much easier, to fight the big villain and go save the day and risk your life, than it is to do the day to day and live in the world.
Maybe I'm sorry, go ahead, Kenny.
I would say, just to add to that, you'd be surprised at how realistic that kind of mindset is. In not just the military, but in a lot of corners of our society, that people can really make the big decisions to do, the right thing for a major issue. But when it comes to doing the right thing, that may cause may cause harm to your reputation, or, like Logan said, may make you the villain.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't willing to make that same sacrifice.
I agree. I think in this, in this comic universe, in the movie world, it's almost like they've been trained to put their bodies at risk, but emotionally they're not willing to be as vulnerable. It's almost like, sure, I'll die for a cause, but I don't want to feel uncomfortable about it. So let's just ease up on that. Guys, I have a surprise for you all.
Okay.
Totally unprompted. I like surprises. You'll love this. We're going to score this. And we're going to start posting these scores so everybody can get our personal takes and the accumulative, tally we have for it. So let's start off with Brianna. Brianna, out of 100 percentage, what would you give this?
That's a big
70.
like ask.
70?
70.
70? Fair enough. Okay. And Kenny, what would you give it out of 100%?
This one,
Yes.
I'd give it an, let's say, 83.
83. Very good. Logan?
Yeah, I think I would say right in that kind of low 80s, 80, 82.
82. Great. So that is a combined score of 78.
What's your score?
Mine was 78 as well.
78. Okay.
So Logan 82, Brianna 70, Kenny 83, Julian 78 for a total score of 78%. You've heard it here first. And I'm just curious what the competition's doing. The average audience score is 79%. So look at that.
We're close.
Look at that.
We're
might be an average audience.
Ours is better. Ours is better.
You're well represented. Yeah.
Yes. So that is fantastic. And out there, we're going to start doing these posting of our scores so you can see what the real numbers are, not what all those hacks do on the internet, just us. But excellent. Loved this. And we're going to be doing these probably every other week, just coming out with the weekly reviews of Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's going to be a great episode. Great series, I mean. Okay, let us move on to our second and larger uncut topic.
Much larger.
In the next 4 hours.
Yes. We're going to talk. We're going to break down each minute of the movie. So
scene by scene.
Yes, it'll probably be longer than 4 hours because there's so much to digest. So being fair, let's just get everybody's broad take on it. Because Brianna took a lot of notes. I took a lot of copious notes. Logan has on his phone. Kenny's going right off the dome. So let's go with Kenny. Kenny, what were your overall thoughts of the Zack Snyder universe as compared to the Joss Whedon one? And just your quick take on it.
So I'll say that there are 4 of us, so we could technically an hour apiece this thing. So I was surprised. I went into it almost like as a joke. Like I literally was like, I'm gonna watch this, but I am not expecting it to be anything better than the original. Like I'm like, it's gonna be it'll be Zack Snyder's true vision, but I don't see that it's gonna answer any questions but I was surprised. I did like it more than the original, which I mean that doesn't take a lot, but it was it was better than the Joss Whedon version that came out. I liked that we got a little bit more background on some of the characters. I did like the cyborg stuff. I really liked that we got to kind of see what's going on inside of his consciousness, like how he sees the world, because that's important. That's even in the comics, like that, how he sees the world and perceives things is so vastly different than the rest of us. So I applaud him for taking that on. I'm still not a huge fan of Ezra Miller's The Flash. The Flash is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, and that could be my criticism, like my fandom, where I'm just like, okay, I'm never going to accept anybody as the Flash, but I just.
What are your thoughts on the TV series Flash?
So similar, like I like what they have done with the show. I just don't buy Grant Gustin as Barry Allen. Like it, I don't like the costume. I just feel like there's more that could be done, to make it closer to the comics. I don't know. And like I said, it could be because I care so much about the Flash character that I'm letting that get in the way. But I'm willing to admit that, and if that means I need to step back and rewatch and do it with a more open mind, I could do that. But I did like the scene with where he was interviewing for the job and
Saved Iris.
saved Iris, and but we don't really know that that's Iris, and it's just we're meant to know
it's Iris
because they don't actually. I know it is, but
I didn't know, like I don't know who
they
that
never
is,
say.
but, yeah.
So in the comics, Iris West is basically who becomes his wife, Barry Allen's wife.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't actually hear her name spoken in the movie. So that's what I mean by like we're meant to, it's implied that she's Iris West, but which I'm fine with that, but I did like that
listed
scene.
as Iris West. Iris West.
It's late
in IMDb.
Yeah. No, I know that. I just like they could have somehow found a way to work her name in, but
a name tag. That's all.
I don't want them to go into too many backstories.
I got it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about the intro to how the mother boxes, woke up being with Superman's death, that somehow his, scream or whatever just woke the mother box. Like, I don't know if I buy that.
Let's come back to all the beats because we're definitely going to go through them bit by bit. I just wanted to get.
But overall, sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
Overall, I liked it better than the previous version, and I actually think I might go back and watch it again, just with a different mindset, because I went through it with a very like kind of a joke mindset that I'm just gonna watch this. I paused it a lot. But overall, I did think it was better. But it is not the end all be all of movies that the Snyder Cut fans have touted it as it was a secret hidden gem in Warner Brothers vault that had been locked away and was gonna just mind melt us once we saw it. It did not.
Nobody's minds were melted. Gotcha. Brianna, what's your takeaway? Your general
Well, I guess I should start by saying, okay, so I watched Justice League, the Joss Whedon one, on Monday, just to make sure, like refresh, see, like remind myself everything that happened. Then I watched the first 2 parts at like midnight Friday night. Wow. And then I finished it Saturday morning. So I didn't sit in one sitting. So I don't know, like it is very long. Like I even had to stop and get up and get coffee like halfway through the like just the 4 parts plus epilogue. So like that is pretty long. But I feel like it only feels maybe a little bit extra long because I just watched it, but also because it's not all 100% new footage. Like some of the like major battle type scenes, I couldn't tell if they were changed or not. Like if there is, there's like maybe subtle hints, but yeah, I mean, it's like chunks of it do feel like the same movie and maybe just edited different. But yeah, I guess like Kenny, I just had a kind of an open mind. Like I'm not a huge DC fan or anything like that, but honestly, like it was so much better than the other one. It had better explanations of almost everything. It fixed plot holes that I didn't even think about. It added all the characterizations, like even like Lois Morning more. It just kind of like felt a lot more emotional, maybe like a little bit more of a darker tone. And it really gave the time to go through each of those characters and kind of understand them more. So for me, especially with someone like without a huge like DC background, I was like, I understand the whole story better. I like what they changed. Like they took out some scenes, some even like funny scenes, but I don't feel like anything they added instead or changed was worse. Like it was always better. So I left feeling like really impressed, especially like we can go into more detail, but like how they ended it, like that final scene, like all like blew my mind. Like I liked it so much more than the first one.
The
So,
final the
Yeah,
epilogue.
yeah. Which final scene?
well,
Because there were like
well,
four.
like killing Steppenwolf and like the actual like,
Seeing
that
Dark
whole.
Side.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
yes.
seeing Dark Side. Yeah. And like how the Flash comes in and like literally like kind of brings time back like that. I didn't expect that much of a change at all. So I was like, oh, like I just like was just sitting there in awe of it. So
we definitely got to break that scene down because I got
yeah.
Logan,
Yes.
what was your just a general reaction?
So I mean, I said this when we were talking about it all in the past, and I'll repeat it again, and I think it's still generally, right in the way I feel, is that, Zack Snyder needed to have that cut needed to exist. He needed his vision to come out better, worse, long, short, whatever it was. It needed to be there. And I think the things that it added to whatever is to become of the DC, universe currently as it stands, it was worthwhile for that. I actually liked it a lot more than I expected to. I liked the way that it changed some of the characters. The way that, I mean, I feel like in the previous version, the Flash in particular was almost too, um, almost teenager, high school-esque in some of like the stupid comedy kind of beats. And here, like, he was an adult, and he could just kind of pick up, and he was capable. And the fact of just how much he and the cyborg character became the whole heart of the movie through all the segments the entire time, like, it was just a really stunning change in the emotional and the character driven aspect of this particular story. um Seeing a hopeful Batman going on faith and not reason was a really interesting way of playing him. Um, Ultimately, I think it would probably have faltered, going down Justice Leagues 2 and 3, because, if any of the things that I've read about what he wanted to do came true, he still didn't quite, I don't think, understands Batman. Um, but yeah, I was very, very impressed. It gets rather high marks. It did not feel like 4 hours, for me, and I saw it 1.5 times. It was really, I was impressed.
And I'll agree with you all. I would say the consensus is that it is better. It is absolutely better. That being said, I have some notes, about 52 notes.
Approximately.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes,
He
actually,
doesn't. He's not keeping a list or anything.
yes, exactly. Well, I can't memorize them all. I will just say this again. Logan is 100% right. This needed to be put out there, if anything, just to show what the difference between Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder's vision was. And it actually is an interesting study on filmmaking in general, because you can see how much editing does impact the narrative of a story, the characters, the presentation, the emotions, in all different manners, whether it's just the editing, the score, the lines they leave in, the lines they take out. Really interesting how this was a totally different film than the one Joss Whedon came up with. That being said, I still did not like it. I did not hate it, but I did not like it. I would say this, that people have such a bad taste in their mouth from the first one that anything better tastes remarkably well. And I think it's a A-B comparison, and B looks so much better compared to A that if you were to see B on its own, it may not be as good as people are thinking. That's just my take on it, because I was trying to look at it as a standalone. And I did still see a lot of wonky computer graphics, a lot of wonky backgrounds. Everything looked like a set or a green screen. That Steppenwolf's upgrade 100% better. Don't get me wrong.
The
That's
Armor
voice,
was
though,
cool.
the armor was cool. I
Yeah.
don't like the voice sounded more menacing, but I was like, did they have to do that? I don't know.
I think he had Batman's vocalizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
think-
worked, but it still felt like a change, like just to make a change. I mean, it still worked, but
I think
that was
I
my
think
opinion.
I think they were taking a lot of notes from the internet and they ran with that.
Maybe,
So-
yeah.
Logan actually said something that I had. It's like in the back of my mind. It was in the back of my mind, but I wasn't realizing it was in the back of my mind. And it's one of the big things that I didn't like about the first one was how they treated Barry Allen. He was like a sidekick almost. Like when they're rescuing the people that included Cyborg's father, right?
Yes.
He was,
He was like-
scared
he was
of
ready-
being in the action.
He was scared. Yeah, he was scared of being in the action.
Yeah.
He was used to like rescue people. And
Yep.
the same thing in when they're in wherever that dome is at the end. He was not used like the Flash. And this movie really did him justice as far as utilizing him as the Flash and his powers and as his character.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always in the back of my mind, and I don't think I realized that like something was nagging me and I couldn't quite pull it out, and that's exactly what it was.
Well, and kind of related to that, like even overall, like it all seemed like so much more of like a group effort. Like even when they were deciding like what to do, like, okay, maybe we should try to like use the mother box to wake up Superman. They changed it so it wasn't just Batman like, guys, we should do this. It was like they had this like huge dialogue. It went into like the background, like history of it. And then it was like, okay, like, is this what we're all thinking kind of thing? And then same like again with that end battle, it just felt so much more cohesive. Like everyone needed to be there. Like I guess Aquaman felt like the least needed, to be honest. But like other than that, like Cyborg had a job, Wonder Woman had a job, the Flash had a job, Superman had a job when he finally showed up. Like it just felt so much better.
Yeah, there was a real equity of decision making that was never present before. That was,
Not at all.
Batman made the, there are 6 of us, not 5. We are all in this. It has to be all of us. But yeah, whenever decisions had to be made, it was just, sometimes Cyborg would say, nope, I got to do it. Or Barry can do this, or whoever. And they would each just, everybody would go, yeah, okay, that's the best plan. And that kind of lack of as much as Batman brought them together, that lack of a singular leader making all the decisions and it really being a league decision, a group decision, was really almost jarring to see, because that's something that certainly was not in the last one. And I don't know that we're truly used to in, these kinds of superhero movies.
Yeah, well, even in the Marvel universe, it was usually Captain was calling the shots.
They were looking at Cap or Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, Cap would do an amazing speech, or Tony and Cap would butt heads because one's trying to be the leader. And I think when they first came together in Avengers Assemble, they were at each other's throats because there was no cohesion. So yeah, you're right. I think this one did show a little more of that round table type of brainstorming. I want to just talk about some things and get your thoughts on them. The soundtrack that Zack Snyder put in this, I had a lot of problems with it because I don't think that it fit. I mean, I saw where he used the same thing when he did Watchmen, and the same thing when he did Batman versus Superman, or the other way around. And it worked for like a first somber moment. Like, this is sad, feels sad, here's sad music. He was playing these drudges the entire flipping movie. And I mean, the whole thing sounded like, what's the name of that guy who does a lot of those morose sounding offbeat things? oh geez, I can't even think of his name, but Hallelujah, Tom Waits. He like a lot of these just dark.
Wasn't
Yeah.
Hallelujah Rufus Wainwright?
Yeah, and again, it may be, but when I
Okay.
think of Tom Waits, I think of like the gravelly, soulful, slow voice, and I just did not feel inspired when I'm hearing this. There were some moments where you had the Wonder Woman theme, the Superman theme, but it would all of a sudden hit these lulls where you're hearing just everything's washed out. It's so dark and Snydery, and again, that's his thing. But I kept hitting these speed bumps in my excitement because all of a sudden it would go into these slow, soundtracks, and I thought they were out of place. That was me. Please give me your thoughts.
No, I loved them.
Yeah.
I didn't think that at all. Some of it was, sure, there was definitely and more of a tendency to somber music and sad music or whatever. But again, Zack Snyder, I'm not entirely not going to expect that. But no, so much of the music I think really almost kind of surprised me, and I really really liked, and I thought it added to a number of scenes. Um, the song in the village that the woman sang at the end, I thought that was really, you know, look, even in contemporary time, current time, there are still things that somebody could see that could be, spiritually transformative. And you get a man coming out of the ocean and just, this kind of ridiculousness in a small town. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some sort of supernatural worship going on there, and songs are a part of worship.
That
So I get that, and I really really loved that. I thought the song with Lois was great. I thought the music that they played when they were looking at the mascara almost made it feel more foreign and alien, which really gave a really cool aspect of that. It's not just an island full of women who are just cut off from the world, but it was almost like a whole different world. I thought that was awesome. When he said Aquaman saved the sailor, I thought that song was great. And with the Flash too. I mean, all of them kind of felt like, it reminded me of, if, speaking of epic movies, if Lord of the Rings had actually included all of the songs and poems in the book in the movies.
Yeah.
And that Snyder actually did that in this. And I thought it really, really added to the tapestry of this movie.
I might have to rewatch it. For the record, I saw this twice. The first time I fell asleep halfway through. So just to be fair, I watched the whole thing again. So that's 8 hours of my life that I gave to this. And again, I appreciate Logan's take on it. So I'm going to go back and listen to songs. To me, they came off a little out of the blue, and they were all consistently the same tone, which I get it's a different type of superhero movie.
The only off-tone one was the version of Hallelujah at the end, but we'll get to that and why. So,
Brianna, what were your thoughts? Do you have any take on the soundtrack or the score? The score I liked. It was just the soundtracks that kind of.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really have super strong feelings. I thought the singing ad was weird, but then again, I was like, why did they add this? Was like, I really do think it's more like the lore of it, like Logan, like what you were just describing. So like that makes sense. But I was like, why? but no, like any other times there were music, I just was trying to remember if it was in the last one or not. I don't. That was like my main takeaway. But yeah, I guess mediocre. I don't.
Did Zack Snyder use Hallelujah in Watchmen when they were having relations in the owl ship?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. So I mean, using the same song. I'm glad he likes the song. Kenny, what were your thoughts? Did you get any? I mean, again, Brianna is kind of on the fence. It took me out of there. Logan's a fan. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm in the boat with Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was improved. So the score I liked, and the soundtrack, I think it was it added enough to change the tone of scenes, and I really like that. I do agree with Brianna that one singing bit was a little off.
Oh no, but are we talking about the village, the Aquaman village?
Yes.
Here's the funny thing. I actually appreciated that.
I'm not saying
I get why.
I get why as well. But it just was one of those things that just caught me so off guard. Like, whoa.
Well, and it's like it's so close to the beginning of the movie that I was like, is this the type of stuff that they're going to be adding along the way?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that what's funny is that was kind of like in the Batman versus Superman. That was when Superman was in Mexico, and they were all kind of putting hands on him like a deity.
Yeah,
kind of one of those hero worshiper things, and I dug that, and I did like the Icelandic type of chanty or whatever song you would call it. But yeah, no, I like everybody's opinion. I want to keep moving along. Now, here's one of the things I wrote in my notes. At least 1/5 of this movie was in slow motion. And here's the thing. If they didn't have these scenes in slow motion, I bet this movie would have just been 2.5 hours.
Would be interesting to see.
I mean, and I'm not even talking about Barry Allen's in slow motion. Everything's in slow motion. It just again, Zack Snyder has his style. He absolutely has a style. He's been doing slow motion from 300, from Sucker Punch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
so. The only thing I'll say with that is depending on like which scenes you're referring to, but
all of them.
When you're dealing with so here's the thing. So here's the thing though. When you're talking outside of Flash, Cyborg, Superman, Wonder Woman, all three have incredible speed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Superman and the Flash, they actually are about tied in as far as how fast they can travel. So to me, when you're dealing with those characters and you're trying to show how quickly they can react to something, what is the option? Just shoot it in full speed and just fill it in with CGI?
No, I hear you 100%, but I
get it can be overdone, but at the same time, there's if the sheer number of characters that all share the same kind of ability, what do you do?
I hear you.
Exclude some, or
I hear you. Every scene was in slow motion, and I'm not being facetious. I say that. I am not being facetious when I say that. Check this out.
Lois getting coffee was not in slow motion.
I think her leaning in and giving it to the cop was in slow. I'm not gonna, but
they even did some tracking shots of her just walking.
The Martian Manhunter scene was not in slow motion.
Oh.
When he flew away, it wasn't slow motion.
No, I'm talking about
he just went slow.
When he was Martha Kent.
Oh, Martha Kent. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Oh.
Let's get to that too. That's on my list. But to my point, I thought that everybody was in slow motion, and I felt like I was in slow motion watching.
So now you know why how the film went from 2 hours to 4.
Yeah, you know what? I could literally take this video that we're doing and slow it down to half the speed, and then we got a 5-hour movie. So okay, and okay, so that was one of the things that I just found was egregious. It's this thing, whatever. So much exposition. I thought the acting was a little wooden, and they were literally giving just these speeches about. I mean, when Aquaman was approached by Willem Dafoe, son of Atlanta. I mean, what's her name? Is the Queen Mother and a human man. Who addresses somebody like that?
Well, keep in mind though, this movie was supposed to lead into the Aquaman solo, the Flash solo.
Yep.
And
Cyborg.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if was Cyborg supposed to get an individual movie.
Yes, him and Flash.
He was.
The Flash
so
was
okay, so him and Flash. I mean, a lot of these were supposed to be set up for all of the movies. So this was. I mean, literally Aquaman, doesn't the movie open with him going to see his father? I
Yeah,
think it
no, no,
does. Like
Yeah.
all of these things were introductions to these characters that unfortunately, due to time and circumstance, we already knew. So to some extent, I can't imagine how difficult it must have been as a director to know that, but still include those scenes, because I have to be in that space of this movie was from 2016 and Aquaman hasn't happened yet and The Flash hasn't happened and nobody's met Cyborg. Like, I can imagine how difficult it must have been to cut this movie, if it was cut at all, with knowing those kinds of things, but also knowing that the audience knows these characters. Like, that's hard.
I will agree with you on that, where, you know, you have to forget that you've seen the films that have come out after
Yeah.
that. But I will say this, is that they literally said 3 times in Atlantis, oh, your mother was a queen and your father was immortal. They said that in 3 different occasions.
Repetition.
Exposition.
And he was fighting it. To me, that's character development, at least to some
Well,
extent.
that's-
I mean,
because
maybe they
that's what
could have
hap-
toned
that's
it
his
down a little
character-
bit, but he was fighting,
That's
taking
his
over.
character. That's his
I
character in
will
the
leave
comics.
it. I will leave it. I will
He
leave it
has
there.
no relationship with Mera. That was the first time we saw him interact with her.
Yeah, I will leave it with what Logan's saying. That these were because it was shot out of sequence.
Yeah.
It seemed a little
Yeah.
redundant.
So,
Sure.
along those lines, though, that as soon as Logan said how difficult it must have been to cut this movie, if it was cut, that immediately made me think, what if there is actual cut footage? Is there like a secret
Ooh.
director's cut of the Snyder Cut?
Zack Snyder's Justice League extended cut. Yes.
Like 6 or 7 hours
Yeah.
long.
6.5 hours long.
Well, how about they just don't cut anything? They just, you know, let the entire thing run, you know, from the time they turned on the camera to the time they turned off. We do it, you know, just
Oh, man.
don't edit anything, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. And I know this is a comic book movie and I'm giving it way too much criticism in certain regards, but I have to talk about the Amazons and what I liked and what I didn't like about them. I want to get your thoughts on this. Wonder Woman, the first one, I thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 acts. The third act, I think it turned into a CG mess. I like the fact that the guy who played Ares in Wonder Woman is not the same person who played Ares in the flashback that Wonder Woman described. You know, completely different Ares, but you know, we'll leave that there. You know, I'm sure Ares is not a 50-year-old British man with a mustache. But I have a lot of problems with this island of Amazonian warriors and the fact that the queen gives an order to her subordinate and the subordinate questions it and she's like, well, no, and I'm like, that's the queen. First of all, you shouldn't question it. You should be, you know, just asking how high. But that was, I'll leave that alone. I did not also like how when there was a fatality, she would stop and hold their hand like it was her child on a battlefield. I don't dig that. And I think that they're doing these Amazonians a misjustice by saying, look, they love all the soldiers as if they're their children. And let's be frank, the entire the temple with everybody in it fell into the sea. And she just is, you know, looking at it, but she's not all emotional. And then she's riding on a horse with her friend. I don't know if that woman had a closer connection with her in some regard. I don't know that, but I'll tell you this. First of all, the horse fell on her legs. I don't know why she just, you know, kind of did the dark,
some kind of chest trauma or something.
No, it was
fatal.
And it wasn't even on her hips. It was on her thighs. and she's just lying there. And she does, I would say, arguably the second worst death scene that I've ever seen. The first one is in Dark Knight Rises with what's her name, Talia, Ra's al Ghul's daughter when she dies in the truck,
Oh.
and she does the double head nod, like.
Exactly.
That's what her death scene looked like to me. With the horse laying on her legs, not on her torso. And again, I just did not like how these hardened warriors that have been trained to fight and die together on the battlefield were taking beats to basically mourn the loss in the middle of battle.
So,
please,
I won't justify that completely, but what I will say is, think about how many times they've lost in battle. Even in the flashback to when Darkseid came to Earth the first time, how many of them died? Not many. So the fact that they just are getting decimated in the numbers that they are, and that no one is stopping it, they haven't seen that kind of just raw savagery before. So think about, like, in terms of psyche, if you've seen your people fight and they've been amazing, and all of a sudden they start just getting decimated left and right, and how many years these people have lived together, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Think about if you had known somebody your entire life, right? And then you're out and a freak accident happened, and even if you knew you needed to keep moving, you would stop, because you're like, that is my friend, or that's my brother or sister or whatever. Like, I can understand that. So I won't completely throw that away, like, but I do understand where you're coming from. But
I will add to this just two things real quick. I don't know that is the biggest loss they've ever suffered. I mean, they've been battling for thousands and thousands of years. So I really hope that this isn't the first time they got their butts kicked, because otherwise, why are they hiding on an island if they were, undefeated? They'd be conquering everything. But
that's not the Amazonian way, right? The reason that they are hidden from the world of man is, that's their choice they made. It's not because they don't want to conquer the world. That's not their goal. Their goal is to defend.
I'll accept that.
Did you not watch the first Wonder Woman?
Yeah, no. I watched the first.
They literally explain it in the first Wonder Woman why the Themyscira is hidden from the rest of the world.
True, very, very true. But but again, they've been apparently fighting. I mean, when they were fighting with Ares and the Green Lanterns and everybody thousands and thousands of years ago. And again, let's be frank, they did not get decimated. Most of their troops were not even there, which is another point I want to bring up. This is the most important artifact in the world that brings about the end of existence as we know it. And they had, like, what, 2 platoons there? I mean, I would think they would have a larger, guard surrounding the most important thing in the universe, especially since it woke up. Because remember, thousands of Amazonians were coming over the ridge way after the fact. I mean, what are they doing?
I look at it like they're like a mix, right, between old Greek god powers and older technology. Like, in some ways they have certain powers and skills, in other ways they don't. Like, all of their weapons are very basic, right? They don't have guns.
Sure.
They don't, they're still using swords and bows and arrows. So in that way, if you think about, like, what they're protecting, if they're protecting something, they're using what they think is a battle-tested method of protection.
I mean, nobody's seen a boom tube. The last time they came, they were on ships, and it was an invasion, and that was 5,000 years ago. And there's nothing to say that that wasn't essentially the, Green Beret or
The
Navy SEALs or whatever of Themyscira. So yeah, they were coming, but at the same time, I mean, I got to agree with Kenny there. Like they were doing what they needed to do, and they weren't out to ever, conquer the world. That wasn't what they were doing. They were just, there's a value to peace, and that requires hiding. And sometimes
I'll accept that, and I will just also say that the Atlanteans also were understaffed protecting their box.
They had like 4 people.
the Atlanteans
Yeah.
were fractured into 7 kingdoms. Aquaman
Yep.
hasn't brought them together.
Yeah, but they
Yep.
come on. For I mean, remember? Well, and again, now I'm going to the Aquaman movie.
Mhm.
They had that army.
Which hasn't happened yet. Keep in mind.
Yes, I'm sorry that my timelines are getting all screwed up.
Yep.
Let's move on to how Batman finds Aquaman. And again, this guy has all the tools at his disposal, and he rides a horse across the mountains.
Can I
because-
just say, okay,
yeah,
this
I'm sorry.
seemed like Han Solo on Hoth.
Yes,
I don't know if anyone else caught that. Like the
Mm.
fur-lined jacket, like literally, I was like,
looking
this
for
is
Luke.
Star
He was
Wars.
looking for Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
yeah, he was on a ton.
his
Sorry to cut
Tom.
you off, but that's
No, no,
exactly
no.
what it
See,
felt
that
like.
one's easy.
Yeah,
That's
He doesn't
fantastic.
want
Thank
to
you.
alert who he's looking for.
Thank you. Thank you for that imagery,
Easy.
Brianna. You made my
But a
day.
Wawa came and Wawa, whatever
No, I
those
think-
things- Wampa.
I think
Whatever
Logan.
those things are called.
I think Logan's right though. I think
Mm.
that this village being in such a remote location, but maybe not fully understanding Aquaman's powers. He wanted to go in as low tech as possible and not alert. But it could also be to pay some respect and be like, I made this journey to see you. I that's going out on a limb.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
But I do think it's more like not to alert.
I will
Aquaman
tell
to
you
his
this.
coming.
I will tell you this. It didn't work because the village elder said, "Who is this jerk talking to us like children? Give me $25,000." That's.
But
what
it
like a
did work
business
because
card.
he got in with the Elder and Aquaman still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it did work.
Yep.
All right. Let me move on to my other gripe. I
Yeah,
do.
let's hear him because
I do
we're
like-
knocking him down.
We're knocking him
Julian,
down.
you-
Plink,
yeah.
plink, plink.
I
Here we
do.
go.
I do like the Han Solo reference.
was good.
That was fantastic.
Top of mind.
Imagery
I was
is
literally
coming.
as soon as I saw
Imagery is coming.
Why doesn't Diana Prince ever wear anything appropriate for anything she's ever doing ever? Ever.
I mean, I'll agree she needs a helmet in battle with how many times she got knocked down and bounced off the back of her head. But other than that, I think she's.
No, not Wonder Woman. Diana Prince. Her alter ego when she's cleaning stuff and she's wearing like $50,000 Gucci, all white apparel, or when she's, excavating a mine. and
That's-
wearing stuff.
that
That's
was
called-
funny. She like has heels, like a couple inch heels, and she like and it's white. Yeah, and this
Look, if you had
caterpillar.
5,000 years to perfect your walking in heels,
But
we
she's
could all do it.
far.
Well, first of all, they were wearing wedges, a lot of wedges back in those days. But it seemed like she
to me,
never
like
had-
the fact that that's the stuff that bothers you.
Oh,
I
no,
know
no,
you're
me, this
nitpicking at
is-
this point.
You were
Yeah.
nitpicking.
That's
That's a
some
level of
deep.
nitpicking. Like, I don't like that she wore Gucci at her day job. Like,
Yeah. Here's my bone to
Yeah.
pick about this movie.
Let me ask you about
that's
this.
like-
she can move as fast
that's-
at the speed of sound and literally avoid the dust particles if she wanted to. But man, that Gucci's got me.
Now, here's the thing. I did like the scene with the terrorism taking over that place in England. I
Ooh,
did like how they edited that.
that was vicious.
It was, but I especially liked how, remember in the first one where they, and to Kenny's point, where she was blocking the bullets and they did like a real quick,
Mhm.
like I guess real speed mode.
Yeah.
They did this a little better for some reason.
Mhm.
I think it just played a little better because she
Much.
did slow motion first. And then when she was doing it, here is my criticism.
What is it, the kid or something?
I'm sorry. I give it with one hand and I slap it with the other. Okay, so she basically knocks all these bullets out of the way. And then, he's out of bullets, and then he, empties his clip, and he starts to reload. And instead of just going up, taking the gun away from him, she blows out the entire floor with her gauntlets of fury.
I was thinking how loud that would be.
Yes.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
hey,
Didn't that?
sometimes you
wasn't
just
the guy
gotta do what you gotta do.
wasn't the guy trying to blow up the whole building? And she's like, "No, I'm gonna," and she throws out the explosion.
Let me
And
blast.
got the whole. I thought that was funny. Again, just
Dude, the things you're nitpicking, like,
yes.
Yeah.
And we'll wait. We're gonna have a lot more. So
I
I
did
know. I
like-
have one that I'm wondering if is on your
please,
list.
yes, please.
no, we're waiting for your list.
Yeah,
Let's get
you
to
run
Julian's
through
list.
yours first.
Okay,
Yeah,
here we
yeah.
go. So so Aquaman saves the fisherman, in slow
On the
motion,
boat,
by
yeah.
the way, and then carries him all the way to the bar. From the sea across the beach all the way to the door, opens the door, and then throws him on the table. I mean, what is
Making a
that?
point.
It's like a
'Cause he needs
personal
his whiskey.
Uber. What's your
Yeah,
problem
I mean,
with that?
yeah, what is he,
Yes.
piggybacking him? I mean, come on.
What else is he gonna do? Drop him off
Yeah,
on
like just
another
drop him
fishing ship?
outside.
You
Yeah.
throw him on the beach and say, "All right, be careful. You don't carry him all the way to the bar."
Yeah, you do. If
If he cares, he does.
Oh,
yeah, he's putting him with
he's
other
putting
people
him on
that
the
can take
table
care of
because
him.
he cares.
He
Because
had to make
he
sure that
cares
he
about
had his
that.
bar tab taken care
Yeah,
of. Like,
it
this
is
guy's
true.
paying
Ooh.
for it.
He needed a drink.
Yes. And let's talk about
Yeah.
Jason Momoa taking his shirt off all the gosh darn time.
That's not the problem. The problem is, where does he get the shirts to put on?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's what I can't figure out.
he
Yeah.
buys shirts just to take them off. I think that's what's happening.
He goes
There's
back
gotta
to
be a
that
box
girl.
somewhere. Where's the box that has his clothes?
The
I want
girl
to see the
collected
box.
the sweater, so they obviously collect them and take them for him, I guess.
Yes.
The one plot hole that wasn't
Look,
discovered.
Look,
Uh,
that is just one of those superhero movie logic things you have to throw out the door.
Yes.
Superhero movies, whether
Yes.
they're live action or animated, do not make logical sense because it's not real.
Well, we're
If
gonna
you
keep
try
going
to
on.
look, if you try to make it real,
What?
I'm trying to help Julian out here because
Oh,
the
no,
things
no,
he's
trust me.
nitpicking is killing me.
I'm
Like,
You know
going through
what's funny,
I'm going through
though?
the list. You can't stop me. Here we go. So
let's go.
Batman's fixing a plane that he bought that apparently can't fly. Who makes a plane that can't fly? What is this? The Spruce Goose?
Even Batman needs to buy salvaged Craigslist planes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'll get that.
Sometimes you just got to fly under the radar. Pun
eBay.
intended.
Pun intended. I like that. Okay. So Diana mourns. Let's see. Steve. Again, yeah. The time is out of order,
Mm-hmm.
but she's looking at Batman fixing this plane. She goes, "Oh, I knew somebody once who would have loved to fly that plane." And I'm just like,
But she said that in the first one.
And I think she'll say it for another 1,000 years because she was 5,000 years old and only found one person that she actually fell for in the last
Mhm.
100 years. Yeah,
That
on
was
that
the-
kind of a time scale, you know what? She's allowed to mourn as long as she needs to.
That was the only man she knew at that point, though. That was the first.
Hey, sometimes you're first, you never
Sees one.
forget.
Yep.
True.
Now this is more of just a storytelling question, not so much nitpicking. So Darkseid, per Wonder Woman's telling the story of Darkseid, had come to Earth and fought all the gods, everybody. Because,
And a lantern. That was cool.
in a lantern, cutting.
Mhm.
So Darkseid came to Earth. He did the scene where he touches the dirt and does his hammer, and the Omega shows up, and the equation is there, right?
Mm.
And then Steppenwolf says, "Hey, I found the equation. Guess what? It's on Earth." Yeah, but I already knew that. What is that? I mean,
Wasn't that more about the mother box? The fact that it was
They didn't-
at,
no, they
Earth-
had the mother boxes there too. Remember, they had the
Yeah.
three witches with the.
right.
It seemed like somebody wasn't checking the script, or maybe did I miss something?
I thought they just weren't sure that the mother box was on Earth, and then they realized that it was.
I don't think they knew it was Earth at the time they originally landed, however many thousands of years ago.
Hmm.
This was a backwater planet that they thought they would just come and conquer and use their mother boxes. Yes, Darkseid found the anti-life equation, But as we saw, who was it, Ares or whoever, actually, mortally wounded him,
Mhm.
and they retreated faster than they probably came. So it wasn't like, oh, this was Earth. It was, yes, Darkseid found it, but that was just something he knew. He knew he found it. Everybody left. There was I mean, look, if you're, running second fiddle to a despot like Darkseid, you're probably going to lose the coordinates to that planet where you actually got beat and just go to a whole bunch of others.
Okay.
And over the course of 10,000 planets, 50,000
You
planets
forget
that he had
which
after,
one.
you forget which one.
So he forgot.
So I had to look this up.
Mhm.
So I had to look it up because I remembered in reading some of the DC comics that I've read that the anti-life equation has been mentioned, as well as the mother boxes.
Yes.
So the anti-life equation is it's an ancient mathematical formula that basically would allow you to take total control over any sentient race. That equation was discovered by a mother box. Right? So it was basically a mother box discovered this equation inside the mind of some character. And that's so they're two separate things, right? So I don't think in the movie that he had, even when he came the first time, I don't think he had possession of the anti-life equation, did he?
No, they said it was in or on the surface of Earth or somehow included in Earth that way.
But it was literally the exact same thing that he did hitting the ground, and the equation showed up in that bizarre pattern. It's almost like they just basically replaced Darkseid with Steppenwolf because he did the exact same thing. He touched the ground.
Well, it was the mother box showing Steppenwolf that it was here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to put him in that vision, even though it was Darkseid who did it.
That makes sense. Okay, but still, I mean, they would have known that you were fighting Amazons and Aquaman. Speaking of which, why did the Aquaman show up on boats? That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, it just seemed
Before Atlantis sunk.
I guess. Yeah. I found it a little creepy that Lois, was cuddling up with Superman's cape, only because it had a hole in it from when he was stabbed to death.
I think the bigger thing was the pregnancy test in Lois's drawer.
Yes. Yes.
I
wrote down.
And I heard the internet.
I've heard some things about that one.
Please tell me what you've heard, Logan.
So again, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I found a link to what was supposedly Snyder's vision for Justice League 2 and 3.
Real. Yep.
Is that true?
That was his. Yeah, you're talking about the Batman and Lois.
Yeah.
Yes, that was his plan, and I will.
I think there's probably there's a whole episode we could probably do on the flaws and the problems with the Justice League 2 and 3 as set up by Snyder. Because man, if that doesn't do almost more of a disservice to Superman and Batman, when this one might actually, taken by itself, kind of redeem his treatment of them.
Yeah.
Those subsequent two would decimate that and then some.
It's the plot of Pearl Harbor.
So
like
actually,
they break up, she gets pregnant with the other kid's baby. Like, yeah.
So what's interesting is when I watched Justice League this time, the Snyder cut, what I took from it was that they were setting up a cross between Injustice, which is basically when Superman turns bad because Lois, who is pregnant with his baby, basically the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois, and Superman kills the Joker, and then basically kind of becomes a dictator to the world. And then you basically pits, like, Batman starts teaming up with, Harley Quinn and other villains to basically take on Superman's regime, but also Justice League War, which is an animated movie that basically is where the Justice League comes together very early on, and Darkseid basically coming to Earth. So it's almost like it was taking parts of Justice League War and then trying to find a way to get to Injustice. But I read the same interview you did, and hearing that Snyder was basically, his intention was to have Batman fall for Lois, I stopped reading. I didn't care where it went after that because that would never happen.
No.
It's not even plausible that would happen in the comics. Batman would never. And it's but
and I think that's what that was probably set up for, and that's just a heinous excuse for a plot if any ever existed.
Supposedly at the very end, when Joker and Batman are talking, that is what they are referencing, is the woman that Batman couldn't keep alive was Lois.
And what they were referencing when he said in I guess it was the Batcave, though it didn't look like a cave much, that the Flash, he had this vision or dream that Flash was right there, and he said, she's the key to everything or whatever it was. Like it was Lois, because the killing of Lois in the second Justice League was what essentially allowed, I guess, Superman to succumb to the anti-life equation that Darkseid got.
And he was wearing that Flash armor. In the
Flash armor was kind of
but that's the same Flash armor that they had when he visited him
in Batman versus Superman, right?
Yes,
where he does the memory.
And again, this is another apparent dream that Batman had. Is he clairvoyant? Is that what's happening? Is Batman dreaming?
So in the comics, right? In the comics, Batman is actually known as the greatest detective in history. Like his IQ is above Albert Einstein. So he is on a very different level mentally than pretty much the majority of the world.
Everybody.
So he could. So I think, how do you show that in a movie? In the comics, we can read it. I think in the movies, they're showing him in the way his mind works and how he sees things, coming to fruition, is through these kind of clairvoyant dreams, and it's really just his analytical mind piecing together like what's to come.
Trying to show him putting together things 6 steps ahead is difficult on screen. It's much easier on the page, and that's the best way, I guess, they've figured out to try and do it.
I could buy that. I wish it wasn't clearly explained to me. So
it was confusing to me. Like I had to Google it later because I was like, I don't know why this is happening.
The problem is the problem with some of these, the way they portray the characters, is you have to know the characters from the comic books to understand some of what has gone on in these movies, and I don't like that.
Some of the comics, some of the cartoon universes,
I'm a huge fan of all, but I don't think you can you hold that expectation of people like, oh well, you should know Batman is like this in the comics, that's why he's doing. No, but
it's ridiculous because we had 4 different Batmen in the past 10. So you don't know what storyline you're going from. You need to at least hint at that. You can't just say, okay, and again, if they wanted to do a genius brain projecting 7 moves ahead, there's a whole bunch of films that could show you examples of that being done. This was him waking up after being asleep, so it gives it the illusion of it. It gives it
he's clairvoyant. I agree with that.
Either that or because again, remember when Flash came, he's asleep, and then he wakes up and papers are flying all over. So what is it? Was he dreaming? Did the Flash visit him? Why is he asleep if the Flash visited him?
That's the intrigue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So while we're talking about his dreams, the second dream, all right, that at the end of I don't know which ending of the movie was that.
That's under the epilogue,
So both of those were a dream? He dreamed about Lex Luthor?
But so when he wakes up from that one and the Martian Manhunter arrives,
Mm.
I actually didn't have a problem. I did not have a problem with the Martian Manhunter appearing because I think because he's a huge part of Justice League in the comics and
He's critical.
but having him basically be like I don't know how he was Martha Kent and knew some of the things that he knew. Like that's really weird. Also the fact that he was played by the character from Batman versus Superman
Larry Lennox.
Larry Lennox that gave the one that gave Lois the he was like the military guy that gave Lois the bullet information or whatever, and said this is about that terrorist group.
He was also the guy that was against Morpheus in the Matrix.
Yes.
Well, that might be a universe too far, but yes.
Is it though? Yeah. He didn't like the cave raid. He wasn't at the cave raid. I know that.
I have to go back for just a minute because I just got a text from my wife, and which Julian, you know Clara.
Yeah.
Claire, I guess she could hear us talking about how this is realistic or not. It's not realistic, and this is her statement, and I quote:
"Yes,
tell him it's like porn. It's never realistic."
There you go. Solves everything.
Yeah.
What is porn?
What the internet was created for, from what I hear.
All I do is cat videos.
Yeah, I watch the cat videos. That's
anyways, I had to throw that one out because I love my wife and she makes me laugh.
Tell her to watch Final Space.
I will do that.
Yes.
But yeah, I did not have a problem with the Martian Manhunter coming in at the end. I did have a problem with the Martian Manhunter being Martha Kent. Because it was so weird.
Yeah.
And
it was unexpected for sure.
It was unexpected, and you're not quite sure how long Martian Manhunter has been Martha Kent.
See, I didn't take it that way. I took it as we may not have realized how long the Martian Manhunter has been observing what's been going on and inserting himself as needed in order to properly, in his estimation, inspire or help or prod in the right direction the people who can make a difference without having to actually get involved himself. I mean, up until that point, again, as comics and some history and stuff go, it was always in the shadows. The shape-shifting ability allowed him to influence things and not have to take a direct part. And the fact that, we actually got to see that kind of Martha Kent influence because he knew, Lois is important, or he cared, Superman knew him, even though, at least as far as, again, some of the comics and history goes, Superman knew him when he arrived, not as much as, not as much as day-to-day kind of a thing, but, they had an interaction and understanding because Superman could obviously see through him. And, I think that was very unexpected to see it, but it was the second time that character has actually made me stand up and shout at a TV.
Really?
The first time was his introduction on it was episode, I think, 16 of season 1 of Supergirl.
Yeah.
And again, that was the first time that I can ever remember where I literally stood up and just started yelling at the TV. It was incredible. And I guess John is my favorite character in the DCU because the reaction that I get and the introduction and the way that he's presented it gets me every time. So I found it unexpected, but I didn't find it entirely implausible.
Let's talking about the epilogues, I want to talk about the Joker scene and the post-apocalypse or the alternative timeline.
The clip from Justice League 2.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And what were your thoughts on this Mad Max-esque? I mean, because again, I am familiar with Injustice and how the Joker, what was it? He gave he corrupted Superman with like a drug or something that made him think that Lois was him.
So
and he killed Lois.
So essentially, he basically hits the Superman with some kind of toxin gas that is developed by the Scarecrow, and it basically makes Superman look at Lois, but he sees the Joker with a bomb. So basically, Superman takes the Joker to basically out of the atmosphere, but the higher up he gets, the more that the toxin wears off, right? Because as he gets higher, he gets closer to the sun, and but he all of a sudden, when he clears his mind and he realizes that it's Lois, it's too late. And like literally, right before all this happened, you learned that she was pregnant. Because Batman has learned that Lois is pregnant, and he gives them like a kind of like a congratulations gift. And Superman's like, we hadn't told anybody yet,
He's clairvoyant. I dreamed it.
Yeah. No, it's because he's the greatest detective. I will say, like, Injustice has been one of my favorite comic book runs in a good while, just because it was such a change in narrative. It just shows a different side, like what would happen if Superman snapped, and that's exactly what happens, because Superman loses his entire world, and basically Batman is in Arkham grilling the Joker about this whole thing, and like, do you realize what you've done? And all of a sudden Superman just bursts through the wall, punches the Joker through the chest, kills him like instantly, and then basically confronts Batman like, this happened because you never dealt with the Joker. And so now all of a sudden Superman is like, Batman's part of the problem, because he's not willing to do what it takes to get rid of bad people.
Right.
And then it just it gets worse from there. I mean, and he does. Superman basically just turns into like a dictator and says, no more, crime. And like, he flies to somewhere in the Middle East and says, you will stop fighting, or I am going to stop your fighting for you. And like, it's just crazy. And of course, like, nobody can take him on.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I remember the the gist of it, how, Joker tricked him into killing his wife and unborn child, and after that he loses his grip on humanity. Yep. So he basically has no stakes in the earth anymore. So he just decides, you know what? Like I'm sure many of us thought before, I'm just gonna run stuff from now on, because you people are the worst. You're the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker said the same thing. Somebody should be in charge and make people do what they want to do. So he went full on Vader. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of.
Vader. Did you like Jared Leto's new interpretation of the Joker?
I don't know if I still. I don't think so. I don't know.
So
how
that was my
it.
first experience with his take on the Joker.
Oh, you didn't?
You didn't see Suicide Squad?
I never saw. I haven't seen Suicide Squad yet.
Same.
Yeah, you saved yourself.
So,
yes.
As far as that's concerned, I really liked it. I thought it was rather nuanced. I thought the way he egged on Batman, and then Batman bit back, and just the sheer shake and terror until he could rationalize a way out of it was an interesting intake on a really, really. It was the first time, maybe not the first time, but one a clear time, should I say, where you could see the damaged Joker character and how he had to use his damage to break him out of whatever, fear state, panic state he was in, and was able to use his damage as his superpower. And I thought that was really an interesting and kind of frightening but inspired take on how to go ahead and do it. And that is my only experience with Jared Leto as the Joker.
I will add to that the one thing I did like in that scene is it showed how much the Joker can get to the Batman. The fact that it caused him to cuss when he was like, "I will fucking kill you." Like, Batman
that was
doesn't
rough,
lose.
yeah.
That's Batman losing his cool.
Yep.
Batman doesn't lose his cool.
Now, did this movie have to be rated R? Because honestly, that F was a little gratuitous, and I mean,
look, I might have rated it R just from the bank scene with Wonder Woman, with how absolutely vicious the attacks on those terrorists were.
really,
There were bodies and blood flying. That really took me back. Like, to see Wonder Woman that vicious and that violent and that just, I mean, they were human rag dolls, and you saw them splat like a rag doll would splat. Like, it was incredible. And the fact that she made the final blow on Steppenwolf.
Yeah, the Steppenwolf,
Yeah.
but also like when the Flash was bringing them back, it was literally like putting them back together. That was disgusting. But
to jump.
To
jump from one topic to the other, and Brianna, you mentioned this about the Flash, and I did like the effects, and I liked the tone when that one moment. A lot of it was just a lot of CG cannon fodder, but I liked when Barry was running laps to get his juice up, his charge, and then he gets clipped, and when he gets up and he's like, "I just got the wind knocked out of me. I'll be all right in a second." And you look down and he's got like this huge, wound. But I felt that. I was like, that's hard. That's not him being, a comic relief. That's literally him trying to step up and be in the game. I mean, Batman literally was like, "Are you okay?" And if Batman shows concern, that's not a good sign, that and then when all of a sudden it's too late, and then the Trinity Unity.
The mother boxes have formed Unity.
When the mother boxes form Unity and it starts to blow up, and he says, "Okay, you just got to go faster than light," and he takes off. The visuals of that I thought were really
stunning.
Cool.
Almost out of place for what I've been seeing in the earlier aspects of it. But I think they really went back to the drawing board, and you could see where they did 2021, technology versus what was this come out 2017, 18,
16.
Yeah. What a difference 5 years makes. But great scene. I really appreciated that scene, because before it just seemed like a whole bunch of red sky madness in the first one. In this one, I had a better sense of where the action was taking place, what was going on. I liked their fight with Steppenwolf. It seemed like there were, it was a little more give and take. It wasn't just, again, just a whole bunch of parademons flying all over the place. And I appreciate, I liked the fighting scenes. And I always said that Zack Snyder can do a good fighting scene. What he can't do is write a script to save his life. Sucker punch. That's all I'm saying.
And I think showing just how completely overpowering Superman was different too. Him coming in and just
brutal. I've never
brutal.
seen Superman literally just burn the half of somebody's head off.
And the hair getting messed up at the end there too. Like, And I think that was the problem with the epilogue, was that showing Superman under the effects of the anti-life equation was not all that different from him just letting loose on Steppenwolf. So it was hard to see the differences there. You know, the red eyes, you know, when he was just, you know, eye lasering his horns off were pretty much the same. But yeah, I think that whole scene with Steppenwolf kind of at the end was just phenomenal. With the Flash, and you know, normally when you just have like the movies that like, oh, just turn back time and redo it, you're like rolling your eyes and can't stand that. But that kind of is the DC's thing, you know. Flash is the key to victory because they're not going to get it right, and he's going to have to turn it back and do it. So it almost becomes, okay, how do you protect the Flash? How many ways can you find to safeguard, you know, your key card there to be able to undo the mistakes that you made and fix things in the way that need to be fixed? And I actually kind of like that, and I'm accepting of that more than I think I am in pretty much any other movie franchise that I can think of.
I saw where they were like alluding to it, and this is the mark of good storytelling, where they're showing and not telling. When they woke up Superman and he was running, and you saw the mother box go into the water and then start to come back out.
Beautiful.
Just slightly. That's what I'm talking about. That's good story. It wasn't exposition like, oh, if I got to run real fast, that way it'll reverse time. And then
yeah, it's show, don't tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As much as, you know, you can question Zack Snyder as you want, there was a lot of show in this. I was amazed in the first 2 episodes or chapters or whatever, I guess, if you will, how little dialogue there was and how much you were just watching these things happen. And that it was just, yes, it was spectacle. Yes, it was slow motion. Yes, there were some of those things, but there wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was just seeing and being immersed in this world that was created. And, you know, I can understand how that had to stretch to 4 hours when you're doing it the way DC did it, as opposed to the way Marvel built a universe.
I agree. I did like it in the last 4 parts. I mean, I'm sorry, the last 2 parts of all of them. I just had like a lot of issues with, and again, I think it is definitely because they were recutting a lot of stuff, and it's never going to be, and also you're trying to shake off the stink from the first one. So you're seeing the same scenes over in a different context. And I will give them pass. And again, I will say it's definitely better. It's a different movie, definitely better. I just, you know, felt it was a little long, and I did feel how long it was. Obviously, the first time I saw it, I fell asleep, but it doesn't feel like 4 hours. Maybe it feels like 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to feel more about Cyborg, because I know they were trying to make him the human component of it, kind of like the entryway for us non-soups, if you will. And explain to me your take on him blaming his father for the death of his mother. And I know it's not logic, but did I miss something? Was there?
I mean,
was it just because he didn't show up at his game?
I think there was a little bit of, you know, patriarchal history there, where if his father had showed up, his father would have been driving. Therefore, his father would have gotten hit. His mother would have been in the passenger seat.
That's dark.
Look, I mean, when you know, you're a kid and you know, your father's never there, and if he were there, you know, look, my father drove everywhere. It wasn't because my mother obviously couldn't drive or didn't. It just, you know, he was the one who drove when we went places, and I think that would have been the same kind of thing there. And I didn't have any problem with that. It was just, you know, it was that kind of a real life thing where, look, Dad drove.
True. What do you think of Deathstroke? John Mangala.
I mean, I like him as Deathstroke. I just feel like that scene was just kind of worked in for, well, you know.
That's I that was one of
It
the is that I saw a lot of scenes that didn't really need to be in there and that didn't really go anywhere. Maybe they were trying to set up something down the road.
That
They were
scene, yeah,
supposed that was supposed to be the Batman.
yep. That's what they were setting
Deathstroke
up
was the
Batman.
villain. That was a complete setup for the Batman. That was supposed to be the one with Ben Affleck, and it was Deathstroke. So
Yep.
that was what that setup was. And again,
And
I gotta hand it to Zack Snyder that the difficulty that it must have been to keep that scene in, even though that movie was not happening. Ben Affleck was not that Batman. There was a whole new Batman.
Right.
But
Right.
keeping that mindset of this was my vision and this is what we were doing as of that time, that was kept in and totally out of place, totally doesn't make sense, isn't going anywhere, but was
That
true
really
to
annoys me
his-
though. Because again,
Yeah.
I even just seeing an article from Zack Snyder and he's like, I just wanted to like make sure there was post-credit scenes because like that's kind of what these things are. Like that's just what we do. But I'm like, but usually they serve a purpose. So like I feel like even with adding like those scenes and then even some of the more like the dark side stuff, which does add something to the film because it gives Steppenwolf's like more motivations. Like we should probably talk about that a little bit. But yeah, it just seems like all of these potential setups, but I don't know if it's actually gonna create more movies after that. Like it sounds like Zack Snyder had, what do you say, like 4 or 5, like 4 more films, which
So
might
maybe-
not happen, or if they do, he's not going to helm them. So I'm like, it just seems stupid to me to like have your dirt like cut of it, but all these scenes that set up something that's never going to happen. Like again, with Marvel, those movies and or TV shows or whatever are going to happen. So it's like you're just kind
I
of
also think this is, but I think this is, in general, this is a problem that DC has. They
can't
they-
stick to something.
they cannot stick to a release schedule. They cannot stick to, and I think it's just that they just don't set it up right. And I don't know if this is Zach's way of sticking it to them, like, you had asked for this. This was my vision for it. So here's what you got to work with. Or if it was just, this is my vision. I'm done.
Or could it be that, hey, we don't have any big comic book properties. Let's make some money.
But they do, don't
Dude, they arguably have the biggest comic book properties that exist. They just don't know how to utilize them.
Well, I mean, like
in this medium, yeah.
I mean, do they
Yeah.
have anything ready to do now? I mean, are they working on anything right now?
The Batman.
With Robert Pattinson.
Yep.
Yeah, but that won't.
That's in the can.
It is.
Yeah.
It is in the can. Filming has ended. They are done.
So that'll
Obviously
come out-
effects and post and
But
all that
it's like,
stuff, but
I
it's
have
in
a
the can.
feeling that film is going to be like it's called the Batman Year One comic.
It's not connected.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be Batman Year 2. But yeah, it's him like
Totally separate.
yeah.
It's when he
It's
first
separate
starts
from-
out.
It's not a part of the DCEU. Yeah, it's separate. Like Joker was separate.
No, which is a shame. Like, there is so much you can do with the DC universe. Like, there's like, I mean, look at I've said it before, and I'll repeat it. That it literally bothers me that they have been so successful with their animated universe and all the
TV.
animated film and TV,
Mhm.
but they somehow just cannot translate that to the big screen.
Mhm.
It blows my mind. Like, the animated movies, they've just done so much, and they're so well. Like, they're so well done. And I don't get like how they're struggling to translate to the big screen.
Well, and I'll say it again. It's almost being a victim of your own success because those properties are so well known and so epic. I mean, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash. Everybody knows these characters. Everybody in the boardroom has an opinion on them. Again, Marvel, nobody cared about any of those characters. Their thing was X-Men, and you saw how they ran that into the ground. But when they were doing Iron Man, half the people on that in the Marvel Studios, well, not Marvel Studios, but half of the people that were giving the money to fund this, they didn't have any idea about the Iron Man story, the nuances of Tony Stark and his ego and his alcoholism. They didn't care. They were like, oh yeah, you can make a movie. Yeah, get who's that guy that fresh out of rehab? Get him. Who's that guy that was in Swingers? Get him to direct it. They had nothing to lose because they didn't really care. But Superman, everybody's got an opinion on Superman, how it should be, where to go, where to take the whole thing. And I honestly think the reason why the TV shows and the animated series is because you're dealing with smaller scale operations, and they don't have people trying to drive the direction of Green Arrow.
But it's not even that. It's the sheer fact that there's so much continuity in the shows. There's no changing of the actors. And the same thing in the animated movies. For a majority of the animated movies, they have the same voice actors.
It's because they're doing it right. That's my point. That's literally my point, is they are doing it right because they don't have people in a boardroom, trying to, do money grabs and just shortcut the system.
I think
to do Avengers, they're doing their own.
Yeah, it is. It's they don't have a Kevin Feige,
No.
And that's what they need. That somebody that has.
And I would argue Greg Berlanti is the small screen Kevin Feige.
He is. He absolutely is. You need somebody like that basically you give the executive control to, but it's somebody that understands the comics, understands how it all should work together, and basically you are going to do this. We're going to sign actors to long-term contracts, right? And we're going to find actors that we trust not to break out of those contracts. And I think they had done it. I think they've just messed up.
Well, now, when you're saying they had done it, that's where
So Henry Cavill, right, had agreed. I think he's still under contract to play Superman. Gal Gadot is still there for Wonder Woman.
Sure.
Ezra Miller signed on to be the Flash.
I'm talking about the actual stories and the directing.
But look at there's that, but it's also the actors, right? But now Batman. Your Batman has walked out. Your directors have walked out. And so you don't have somebody at the top that's driving this like Marvel does. And I, like I said, it's sad because I really do. As much as I am a Marvel fan, I'm just as much of a DC fan. Like, Flash, like I said, Flash is one of my absolute favorite comic book characters between both universes, right? Marvel and DC. I love the Flash. And it's sad to think that it's not going to get the justice on the big screen that it deserves.
No pun intended. And I definitely
they need a league.
Exactly. I hear you 100%. And my point keeps going to the whoever's at the top and making those decisions. It has been a shit show. And they're making decisions, I think, haphazardly without forethought. And I think they're literally just trying to leapfrog to the big money. And they've never done a consistent storyline or had like you're saying, like long-term contracts. None of that. Bringing Ben Affleck in as Batman is great if you're doing Batman at 50, but you can't build a franchise around that. I mean, That's just poor universe building.
Yep.
But
all the other characters have plenty of years.
yeah. I mean, look at Chris Evans. I mean, he was doing Captain America for what, 10 years? And he's like, listen, I'm done. You can't put a 45-year-old Ben Affleck out there and have him doing anything. He's got bad knees.
Unless you're doing that era of the comics.
Which again, I would love, and that's another thing that really cheesed
You
me
bring
out.
in a Ben Affleck if you're doing the Dark Knight Returns.
Right, 100%. But you don't start off a franchise with Dark Knight Returns.
No.
And let's be quite frank, I've said this before. That whole Batman versus Superman was like 3 different movies in one, because whoever's in charge didn't know how to tell a good story. So you have in Doomsday, Lex Luthor, and Batman. Those are 3 different comic runs. Why would you have them all in the same thing? And it ends up with, again, an old Ben Affleck, trying to put together the Justice League. So what? Again, it's just bad planning, and whoever was in charge should have thought about that before making that film a thing. But I have a feeling that Snyder was pressured into doing that because they wanted to get to the big money. I don't think they were thinking long-term. They were thinking, "Ooh, we need that Avengers moment."
Warner Brothers in the movie verse has never had the patience to do these characters justice.
There you go.
And these characters need an entirely different treatment than I think the Marvel characters do, because when it comes right down to it, the more Marvel characters, except for Thor to some extent, are relatable. Are everyday you and me who happens to be rich, or happens to have a gamma ray explosion, or happens to have a super suit, or happens to have wings, or happens to be able to shrink small, or whatever. All of DC's characters are essentially gods.
Yep.
Gods among men. And that
Except-
requires, except Batman, and a few others, except Green Arrow and Atom and sure.
It's not even that. Batman is literally a god among men when you think in terms of the fact that he is like one of the smartest people on the planet and is a multi-billionaire. Like he's like a Tony Stark level, in terms of technology, and can do whatever. But like characters like the Flash, Cyborg, and some of they are grounded, and they are regular people. Like Barry Allen was a lab tech, that gets struck, basically by like the lightning that
I think
imbues the speed force within him, and
I think one of the
that's
things,
his gamma ray accident.
I think Logan's tapping into something about that. A lot of these characters, although they have abilities, I mean, Superman is God mode. There's nothing that can hurt him.
Yeah.
Superman's story has never been told appropriately.
Yeah.
As far as I've ever seen on screen.
No, you're right. I think that's why I relate to, or not relate, but why I enjoy, like, from the DC universe, why I enjoy the Flash. Because Flash is still he is a very grounded character, because he still suffers if he does not keep up with his day job.
They could have done the Flash almost like Spider-Man. They could have literally built an entire series around the Flash if they would have.
Yeah.
And again, Logan, hit the nail on the head and said the key word: patience.
Patience.
Yep.
But when
planning,
they wanted that, again, so clumsily did they want to jump into that team up. They used flipping a computer screen to introduce their characters. I mean, how long did that meeting take? Well, how do we introduce Aquaman? I don't know. A GIF? It was it was, like he was trending on TikTok. That's the videos they showed of these legendary gods. Oh yeah, here's some footage of Aquaman we found on YouTube. And here's a logo for him.
Well, again, that's if they wanted to jump right to the money, and I think there is a way to do it, but I don't think the origin story is the way to do it. They tried to jump to the money, but tried to also kind of do a side eye at Marvel and be like, well, how did Marvel do it? Oh, we'll do it that way. If they would have jumped to, Superman is iconic. I don't think, even if you find, people who don't know superheroes, you would know Superman. If you're not a big superhero fan, you would know who Batman is. You would know who Wonder Woman is. These characters just transcend their genres and transcend kind of the cinematic, the literary experience period. You know them. And if they would have banked on the recognition, and they would have jumped to a Justice League 10 years already after their formation. The satellite station exists. Everybody is there. You're just seeing these characters. And you were to tell a story and show them already a fully functional league, already a league of 15 or 20 or 30 superheroes and stuff, and defeating this, cosmic threat. I think that would have been a completely different and a much more compelling way to do it without trying to do the same Marvel one. Because if you're not going to have the patience, and if you're not going to take the time to set up the characters in each movie, then you have to be betting on the fact that everybody knows your core characters. Everybody is invested in your core characters. And if they are, go to your core characters at their height and tell that story, and then tell spin-off stories about individual characters where there's a 20-minute flashback that Marvel might have spent a whole movie developing. There are ways to do this, but DC has just not had the forethought or the wherewithal to be able to tell these stories in a way that respects the position that these characters should command, and the patience to see it outright.
I not only are you 100% right, they could have gone and done a reversal to that point, starting off with the team, and then, like you're saying, have side adventures. There's no rules against that, but I have a feeling, from a business aspect, why they didn't. One is greed, and the other is cowardice. And when I say cowardice, I mean they don't know what they don't know. So
they're risk averse.
The risk, yes.
Too
exactly.
risk averse.
Exactly. They want the money, but they don't want to take the chance on creating something or doing something different because it hasn't been proven. They can't quantify what they've not tried already.
The first Justice League should have been a $300 million end game against Darkseid. End of story. Boom. Yep. Just throw it out there.
Exactly. And I'm going to play script doctor. What I would have done is I would have had Cyborg joining a fully formed Justice League, and the story's being told from his perspective. It's like you start off with Cyborg as a football player. He gets horribly injured. You watch him going through rehab and dealing with, well, not rehab, but you watch him become acclimated to the suit, and then approached by the Justice League, and you don't see them as the camera does not follow them. They're being shot like third person. You never hear their.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. You never hear their dialogue amongst one another. You're on the outside. You're on the outside looking in at them, and it's basically almost like you're discovering the Justice League, and we're discovering it through your eyes as
I'll fund that.
So, Justice in 2014, the animated movie Justice League War came out, direct to video, right? Mm-hmm. It is essentially almost like the plot you just discussed. It basically starts out. Hang on, it starts out with these that there's abductions happening around like Gotham, and basically Batman discovers that it's parademons, and then basically you within like the first 20 minutes of the movie, you start getting introduced to each hero. Green Lantern comes into play. Superman comes into, and at first you have Superman fighting Green Lantern and Batman until like Batman convinces him like, hey, we're on the same side. And but in the end, like, and Cyborg gets introduced, right? Because he goes through his accident and he ends up getting turned into Cyborg, right? And then he realizes he can interact with these devices that they find, which are the mother boxes. And he starts learning about boom tubes and things like that. So if, like, to Logan's point, earlier, if they had started with something like that, that would have been the film to make into live action, if you're banking on everyone knowing your core characters, right? Because in the movie, like, you're not introduced to, like, here's Green Lantern's history. Green Lantern just comes out of nowhere. You're expected to know who he is. Superman, you run into out of nowhere. You're expected. So, but it is a fantastic movie, and it's very well done for an animated movie. It's fantastic. And I'm like, how do they not see the success of these things and realize, like, this is where we should start?
There's I think it was an animated series similar to that, where it was some kids, and you probably know the name of this. Some kids who were telling stories about Batman, and they each had a different perspective or a take on what Batman was. And each story they were telling was a different Batman. Like, one was the kitschy 60s Batman, another one was the Dark Knight Returns, and another one was I forget the name of it, but it's an animated series from the WB. And it's just these kids talking about, yeah, well, I heard Batman did this and this, and then it goes into a story drawn completely different from each other. But I love the premise of being an outsider looking at these God characters. And I think that would have been the in if you want to introduce people, but not give away the store and saying, well, yeah, this is Superman, but you're like that movie 30 Feet from Stardom. You're kind of on the peripheral, just marveling at all these amazing things while you're finding your footing as Cyborg. So in the short, Warner Brothers need to hire me to save your franchise because you're doing it wrong. But,
hire us.
Exactly. We literally just wrote your script for you. But no, I definitely think the Zack Snyder days are over. I don't think he's doing anything.
Didn't he say, like, he's done?
I think everybody said he's done. I think that was a mutual breakup. I think they literally just brought this whole thing back because the internet was a little on buzz, and they wanted to, because they made their money back just with the new subscriptions on HBO Max. Definitely. So I'm not saying it was a money grab, but they made a decision to make money off of that. So.
So Julie, did you have any more nitpicks?
I do. Yes.
Well, I had the one. I want to see if mine is on there.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know. Did anyone else feel like it started to turn to Steppenwolf kept calling Darkseid? Like, every other scene with Steppenwolf was like him calling Darkseid.
Yep.
So like by the fourth, I think it was the fourth time, I was like, he's doing this again. And then, like, Darkseid was like, what do you want? Basically. So I was like, okay, well, I guess he feels this way too. But that was another, like, just kind of nitpicky thing.
It just shows that annoying phone calls are, like, universal, Like, oh my God.
It's true. Like, calls by Zoom. Which, like,
today, what do you want?
Well, he kept calling what's his name, the intermediary.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay, yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, whoever that other guy was with updates, which there was like, always a good reason for it, but it's still like, it just kind of turned silly to me, where it's like every time someone was like, "Hey, I got another box. Hey, I got another box," or whatever it is.
Yeah, can't you just?
It was that last time that Darkseid appeared.
Yeah, well, because he said, I got the boxes, and Darkseid, all right, I'll take this. Basically, it was his
Make those calls.
receptionist.
Well, it wasn't that I got the boxes; it was that I found the anti-life equation.
Anti-life
and
equation.
that's what got Darkseid all
Yeah.
in a tizzy.
Yeah.
And again, that's what kind of threw me, because it's like, hey, remember that planet where all this stuff happened? I'm on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, really? That's...
But again, I think it was so much better in the Snyder cut, kind of like giving Steppenwolf more than just like I didn't really connect with him as a antagonist at the other one. Like
He was
felt
never a
so much
primary
more
villain.
real. Yeah, he was just like out to collect these boxes, and that was it. Like, yeah, he was like scary, but this one felt so much more like he has like a debt to pay, so he's like more desperate. It's like it just went into this whole more kind of expansive background, and again, like his like boss and boss's boss are even worse than he is. So crazy.
No, that they did give him a little more of a dimension. Not a lot,
Yeah.
but apparently he was
Enough.
prideful, and Darkseid doesn't like that. So
No, I like the desperate. Like that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. I didn't connect
Yeah.
that word to it, but that's totally right.
and I'm so glad they got rid of that scene where if you're afraid, the parademons turn on you and start attacking.
Yeah,
Mm.
it felt
Ugh.
much better to have like Justice League literally killed him.
Yeah,
Send
yeah,
his
not-
body into the netherworld.
Wonder Woman
Basically.
ended it.
Yeah, which that was
Oh,
a very
yeah.
Snyder 300 type of cut. She
Oh,
like jumps
yeah.
off at slow motion as she like hacks
There was
his head
one
off,
scene.
and
There was one scene in the mascara where the queen ran up the wall and to jump down and stay, but it didn't
oh yeah, I didn't. That was
yeah,
not-
but there was nobody behind her. She was just
Yeah.
doing it in hopes that somebody would be there when she came.
Well, again, it was just to kill another one of those things, but it's like your job is to get the hell out of here. Like,
Mhm.
what are you doing? She's like got it under her arm.
I don't know
Yeah.
what. Yeah, it didn't seem like the most orderly military organization for.
Yeah.
I did like how they kept referencing how old things were, and they said, "Yeah, it's been 10,000 years since blah blah blah," and nobody, and this thing hasn't woken since 5,000 years ago. It's like, wow, thank you for giving me the context of how long things
Once
take.
again, to remind
Yes,
you.
but again, nitpicking. It's fun though, because
But I just wondered if anyone else felt that way. It was like,
Let's hear some more Julian's nitpicks. They're pretty fun.
Yep. Well, here's not a nitpick, but an observation. I did like how at the end, before the epilogue, they had Batman on the Bat Tank from Dark Knight Returns.
Mm.
See that?
oh, I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah, no, it was right before. It was when they were singing a very slow, sad song, and Batman, he's standing on a tank, and you pull back, and
Mhm.
it is literally the tank from Dark Knight Returns, not the movie, but the comic book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's a beast of a tank. It's not. It doesn't look. It looks like one
Looks
of the,
out of place.
well, it's not practical, and it's almost like if you were on Mars or somewhere. It's literally the size of like a condominium, and he's just standing on it. If you ever read the comic book Dark Knight Returns, brilliant, by the way, and they were ripping that off all the time for Batman versus Superman, that whole thing, because Batman was older, he was 50, and and that's when he fought Superman, but he had a tank when he was fighting the mutants, and the tank, it looked like something out of a Tim Burton novel. It was just huge and gothic and completely inappropriate. I don't, it was like all treads, but yeah, if you look at it again, you'll see he's standing on a ridiculously large tank. That's probably why I didn't recognize it, because it doesn't look like a tank. It looks like a house. But let's see. I did like Cyborg upgraded with a little minigun. He had like a minigun.
Oh, in the epilogue?
Yeah, the epilogue, what he had on his shoulder.
A little more War Machine.
Yep.
Exactly. And again, I don't know how that's going to impact Superman, but sure, get your gun.
Well, so in the comics,
Mhm.
Cyborg has so the material that he is made from is transformed. Like he can literally think it, and his body can transform. So he can create a rocket in his arm
Yeah.
by thinking about it. So the only issue I had with the little minigun was it did not match his armor.
Well, it's because he mounted it to him. That wasn't part of his.
I know.
Yeah,
Which I'm like, why? He doesn't need to do that. He can literally.
that's my
make
point.
one.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. He might as well be wearing a vest with grenades on it.
Yeah,
It
and I
looks
really
great.
like Logan's reference there because, I mean, essentially, that in that scene, that is like a War Machine ripoff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about, and again, I found this kind of interesting, and again, a total waste of time, where his father goes to see him and he's like, I don't want to talk to you. Okay, if you don't want to talk to me, here,
Here's the
take this.
tape.
Here's a tape. Here's a tape of me talking, since you don't want to talk. And
I
then,
don't know. It's common to like write a letter,
or
like
an
you're
email.
figuring at least. I don't know.
Yeah, or an email.
It's a
or
little cheesy. Yeah.
And
I
not only was that cheesy, but the recording in and of itself didn't make any sense, because he was like, you have the ability to, manipulate the stock market, and you can launch nuclear missiles. How does he know all the things that Cyborg can do?
Well, because
Because
he had him
he
in a lab,
understood.
though, right?
He had already been studying the material that Cyborg is made from.
Yeah,
Silas Stone had been researching for years.
yeah.
He understood and knew how that technology could work. He did not understand. He did not know that it would graft to his son.
And he obviously studied his son after he,
Yeah.
saved him and brought him back and
True.
saw what he was capable of. So I didn't have a problem with that message. I had a little bit more of a problem, as even more nitpicky as this is, that Cyborg is somehow able to manipulate plastic
Are you talking about
when he puts the tape
Put it
recorder
back
back together?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't have a problem with any of it. I would have felt better if he just dealt with the magnetic tape or something, but he can
yeah.
manipulate plastic.
Like made a tape player with his hand.
Yeah,
And put the tape in it.
I don't get that.
No,
yeah. He should have gone like
does
sound
Movie
wave.
magic again.
Yeah.
Again, totally movie magic, but
yeah,
that was my
yeah.
nitpick on
That's
that
not
one.
even a cyborg power though.
Exactly.
I'm with Logan on that
He's
one.
not
You mean
Plastic
he
Man.
can't reconstitute machines that are broken just by
He can
hovering them?
reconstitute machines,
but not plastic.
but how can I have a problem with plastic.
Yeah,
If it were an all metal tape recorder or looked like it, I might have felt better.
yeah. It
But
didn't look
literally,
metal at
my
all.
problem is plastic.
And it was literally dust. Some of it was dust. Some of it had been crushed to dust.
Yeah.
And metal doesn't really crush like that.
Mm.
I did like the whole tie-in though, like with his, like they added his father's death. And at first I was
Yes.
like, what is the button? Like, why did he sacrifice himself? Thankfully they explained it just like really quick after that. Like, again, he knew
Yeah.
that Cyborg would understand that like he was basically marking the mother box so they would know where to go. And it was like his sacrifice. Like
He bet
for
on the
them. It
intelligence
was, like,
of his son, and that was touching.
exactly, which I was like, okay, like I really like
Yeah.
that ad for sure.
It reminded me of Dr. Manhattan's transformation in Watchmen.
It bothered me a little bit because, like, they essentially treated him like a throwaway character.
Silas?
Silas, yeah,
Well, doesn't he
How many
die in
movies-
every? Doesn't he always die in a science
Yeah.
a science lab?
Yeah.
Isn't that like literally his thing?
but I mean,
But yeah, his
in
life was
but in
justified
comic-
though. Or
in
his
the
death.
comics, though, Silas Stone is around for a good while.
No.
And-
Well, yeah, but
And
again,
he actually helps with the Justice League, and so I'm like, why? Like, I understand why he did what he did. I don't understand why they had to do that. Like, why did you have to sacrifice this character for that event to occur? Like, you're telling me you
No.
could think of no other way, and you're just like, we're just gonna add some more grief.
yeah, that's.
But again, like it's his connection to Cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly
Like
what it
he
was.
knew, yeah. So like that's why.
He knew and bet on his son, even though his son
Right.
didn't care
I
much
get
about
that.
him.
I
But-
understand and get all that. I just
Couldn't even
I just
outside.
don't like the fact that you killed off Silas Stone after one movie. Like,
Yeah,
But it set up the Atom taking over Star
Yeah.
Labs.
yep.
Yeah, I think they did that, but I also think they did it just to make, some emotional investment with Cyborg and shape him out of his apathy.
He already
Yeah.
had grief.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
It did add the stakes with the mother box, though.
Yeah.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah, because in the other
Mhm.
version, they literally just like show up and take it, and that's
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, they did that a lot. They were just showing up and taking it, but with
pretty much.
minimal resistance. Let's see. I did like there goes Vast. Okay. But I like Logan. You were talking about, or who was it? Was it Kenny or Logan that were talking about how Batman and Joker were having this, like a smack talk. That was interesting. I did
Yeah.
like. I mean, of course, Jared's going to try and get under, the cowl, so to speak, and just play with him and talking about, and I love how it was a little forced and a little wooden. But what's the Aquaman's friend's name?
Mara.
What's that?
Mara.
Mara. It was a little kind of shoehorned in there. Who have you ever loved? And I was like, who asked somebody that?
That's why they threw that in there, because of the 2 and 3 plans.
Yes.
Well, because
it
you're
was.
right.
Let me put it this way. I get why. It's just it was
Yeah.
clunky. It was very clunky. Who have you ever loved, Batman? Oh, he's loved somebody.
Actually, no, but that's a really so. I bet a lot of people did not understand Joker's reference to that, because in the comics, what Joker is referencing in the movie was how Batman's sidekick Jason Todd, that
Yes.
version of the Robin, Joker kills.
Oh yeah.
Well, they saw
comes
that
back as
in
Red
the
Hood.
in
But-
Batman vs Superman, when you saw the Robin costume that was all spray painted up
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
So no,
That's
I mean,
exactly what he's referring to, right?
Yeah.
no, I thought
The
it was
reason
clearly.
but the
which was a
reason-
misdirect.
That's why, but that's also why the Joker brings up, like, he's loved somebody, because Batman really did love Jason Todd like a son.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, you said adopted son, but Logan, you're saying it was a misdirect.
Well, I
mean,
think it was a misdirect for Lois, quite frankly, because Joker said that, but then he threw out his parents and Jason Todd and others, but he didn't specifically say Lois. So as much as he said it to needle Batman, and Batman would know what he was talking about, but if nobody else did, he threw in the others as a complete misdirect so that he could have that intimate connection with Batman, and Batman would know that everybody else was just, true, but not what he was talking about.
Yep.
I'm trying to, because I just saw it recently. I'm trying to recall exactly. I remember him saying, "Oh, he knows what it's like to lose somebody he loves."
Yes.
like a father, a mother, an adopted.
But there
son.
was a beat, and there was a scene where a shot where he looked to Batman and Batman looked to him like, "What are you going to say next? Watch your words."
Well, yeah, he
Well,
literally
wasn't
said
because
that.
he didn't want him to bring up Lois.
I thought there was
Wait, no,
there was
he
a
said-
beat
no,
where they
no.
mentioned he couldn't keep her alive.
Yes.
Well, wait a second.
Yes.
I literally just saw this, so I gotta
Mhm.
full fresh mind here. He said this is the order, because I remember, because I was studying it. He said, he actually said, "Be careful what you're saying," before he even got to Robin, so
Mhm.
or the adopted son. So he was like, he knows what it's like to lose somebody, don't you, Bruce? A mother, a father, and he says, "Watch what you're about to say." An adopted son, and then he said, "But did he say?" I remember he said, how many other people have died because you didn't have the cojones to do what you should have done.
Which is the actual conclusion to Justice League 3.
Yeah. But with Lois and
Right.
I mean, I definitely got the Robin reference. I don't think that anybody who wasn't familiar with Injustice knew about the whole Lois thing, which
It
is,
should have been a
sworn-
surprise. We shouldn't
could've
know this
sworn,
and
though,
be able
that
to
there
talk
was-
about it.
yeah.
I could have sworn there was a line where he said something like, you couldn't keep her alive.
Yes, he did say that.
Did he say
And
that?
that's at
thought
that
her-
moment, the her.
Yeah, because that sounds
Joker was
familiar to me.
referencing
So.
was Lois.
And then you're totally right, Julian. He went through the mother and the father and the be careful what you say.
Yeah.
And Joker said Jason Todd instead of Lois.
Mm-hmm.
So Joker was careful with what he said, even though he still said something significant enough to get under Batman's skin.
Well, I would say, yeah, I would definitely say that him murdering Jason Todd will get under his
And I would argue Batman took the card specifically because he knew and the Joker knew he didn't say Lois. So, all right, fine, yeah, you went there, but you didn't go all the way there. So we'll play this game. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I found the quote or the line. He was like, Joker to the Batman was saying, you need me to help you undo this world you created by letting her die.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Lois, how she suffered so.
Yes, that I do remember that. I don't like that he said, how many other timelines have you let? I thought that was a little too on the nose.
I mean, that was Snyder basically not, and again, all respect due to him, not understanding Batman, in that the way that he wanted to redeem Batman was to have Flash trick him into saying that, Lois's kid is actually his. So he sacrifices himself to save Lois, which is not actually a sacrifice.
I'm sorry. Maybe say that whole sentence again about who. Wait a second.
This is coming from the article that talks about Snyder's plans for Justice League 2 and 3 if they were to happen.
So basically, to understand all the context from the scene with Batman and Joker, you need to understand what Zack Snyder's ultimate plans were for the future Justice League movies that are not going to happen now.
And probably, this would be the place to say them now. So please say what those plans are.
So initially, at least as far as this is concerned, in Justice League 2, Darkseid comes and kills Lois, where Batman doesn't do anything or isn't able to do anything to save her, when the only thing he could have done is the sacrifice play, which he would not make. So Superman comes and sees Batman basically holding Lois, or Lois is dead, and that enables Darkseid to use the anti-life equation on Superman and convert him to his side and then take over the world. So the third Justice League then becomes Batman trying to send the Flash back to try and warn him. And everybody's like, oh, just tell him, Lois is the one you have to save. She is the key to everything. Just say that. And Batman pulls him aside just before he goes back in time and goes, no, tell me the kid is actually mine. So that once Batman hears that, he actually makes the sacrifice play to throw himself in front of Lois to prevent Darkseid from killing her. And that's what Superman sees. And it prevents the apocalypse timeline and then allows them to eventually defeat Darkseid. But that also means then Batman would never have been the kind of individual or transformed enough to make that play on his own for the good of the world. He literally needed to be coerced into making a sacrifice play by himself, and thus, as far as I'm concerned, completely negating and degrading the core of Batman's actual, caring for the world and caring for the city and caring for the entire universe, because the only way he was willing to sacrifice himself was when he was tricked or not or whatever that Lois's child was actually his. So that also then means that he and Lois had something which I also have a fundamental issue with that we can't even
Batman
begin to unpack.
In reality, Batman would have made the sacrifice play to begin with.
He should have.
In reality,
and that's why Snyder doesn't understand Batman.
I did like that Batman and Wonder Woman had a couple of, let's just say, interesting moments.
Awkward run-ins.
Yes. some reaching for the mouse at the same time.
Yeah.
And I love that he has $1 billion computer and a typical Dell mouse pad.
But that's also, to me, that also goes to show that Zack Snyder does not understand those characters, because in the comics, it is well established that Wonder Woman is actually very attracted to Superman because she sees him as like on her level. Like, she does not consider Batman on her level at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why did she love Steve Austin? I mean, Steve.
Whoa. there's the universe I want to see.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's in the comics. Like, so in the comics, Steve Trevor is more than, like, he's not just some pilot she meets. He is her liaison to the Department of Defense. So he's essentially like the liaison to Themyscira, and over time they go from professional to intimate relationship.
And I would argue Steve Trevor is the Captain America character without the super serum. He's that same altruistic, just you can't help but love him that Chris Pine could play kind of character. And that kind of just sheer, almost puppy aspect of him is what really, it's her first, as far as the story goes, kind of long-term interaction with, that side. And she's, there's a value to that kind of a character.
Interesting. So she likes the good guy.
For example, in Justice League War, there is a scene where Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor are arriving to DC, and as they get out of the car, they're walking through this park, and she stops, and Steve gets her an ice cream cone. Or no, it's not Steve. It's a little girl's ice cream cone falls on the ground, and Wonder Woman, like, basically, because she's not used to interacting with regular people, and she just like thrusts her sword towards the guy and is like, give this girl another and I'll have one too. And she tries ice cream for the first time, and if you remember from the first Wonder Woman movie, she tries ice cream and she's like, it is almost word for word exactly what she does in Justice League War. She tries it and she's like, this is amazing, you should be proud of yourself,
Yeah.
And the guy's like, I'm just an ice cream vendor.
See, I think that was one of the things that I missed in Wonder Woman. I know they had to hit a lot of beats and get to the end of it, but and get to the big CGI horrible fight at the end. But I really would have liked more of the. I just have a feeling, and maybe they did it right. I would have liked to seen her have a little bit more. Going to your point about her seeing Superman on her level, having kind of this. I would have liked to seen her with a little bit of an arrogance or an entitlement that, I am royalty amongst muggles, for lack of a better term.
She doesn't have that kind of attitude. What I mean,
that's not her personality.
Her attraction to Superman is the fact that he is literally like the strongest being that she's met.
I would argue it's because he's most altruistic.
Yes, it's that, and it's. And they have to interact with the world very similar. They're both almost like aliens in the world, because she comes from Themyscira. She doesn't, when she's interacting with the public, like, it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Childlike. Like, she doesn't understand social
nuances.
Yeah. And Superman is sometimes similar. But their relationship,
wait a second. He grew up here.
He grew up here, but to me, like, their relationship is well established in the comics. And to take all of that and kind of just twist it around the way like Snyder has just doesn't make sense. Like, showing Batman and Wonder Woman as, having these little moments. No.
I could see it. I could see it. I mean, first of all, Superman loves Lois. So, that's not happening. And
But in the comics, it's both. Like both things happen. Like
Yeah.
there's the storyline
Mhm.
where Superman is with Lois. There's also the storyline where Superman and Wonder Woman.
oh no, I'm talking about the Zack Snyder one, the one where I mean, I'm sure there's different comic versions, but I'm just talking about these three films that you're talking about with Zack Snyder. I could see, just based on their conversations, and they're putting together a team, and she's seeing what he's putting himself through, all in the name of the greater good. And she had so much more of a connection with Bruce Wayne than she did with Superman. I mean, there was like no familiarity there at all. So in the Snyderverse, let me put it
Yeah,
that way.
no, I get that
her.
because there's already the relationship established between Superman and Lois.
Yeah.
Yes, there's not going to be the chemistry between Superman and Wonder Woman.
Right.
But at the same time, that would not happen in the normal character arcs anyway. Like a Batman and Wonder Woman thing, they're just two different people.
Yeah. I didn't see
I understand
that
like that he can create that in his universe.
Yeah, well, that's all I'm
like,
talking about is this universe. That's literally my only reference is what we're watching now, and based on what you're telling me, I could see Batman and Gal. I could see, let me put it this way, I could see Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot hooking up, based on what I saw on screen. That's just what I'm saying is, in this universe, that's I can actually see that happening, only because of the moments where she saw him battered and bruised, and she's like, you can't keep doing this, Bruce, and he goes, I can't even do it now, just those.
That wasn't this cut.
No, and actually that was back in Batman versus Superman.
Right.
Was it?
Was it, or
Yeah.
was it
It was this. It was Justice League.
It
where she
wasn't
saw
this
him
cut
all-
of Justice League, though.
Was it in Justice League?
Yeah, I think it was the Joss Whedon version.
It was the other cut.
Oh, you're right. That's because when Superman
Yeah.
threw him against the car.
Yeah.
I am glad that I will say now since we're talking the different cuts of the
Yeah.
movie, I'm glad they removed the whole Aquaman sitting on the lasso of truth.
They also
That
they
scene
also
was just
they also removed the Flash, knocking Wonder Woman over and just
Yes.
resting on her chest.
And
Another
they-
aspect
Oh,
of them
I
aging
forgot about
Flash up.
So here's the thing. So I will say they removed the post credit, or is it the post credit scene in the Joss Whedon Justice League where
They had the race,
They
the
had the
Flash
race.
versus. Mhm.
so even though that it was kind of awkward, that actually happened in the comic books.
Oh yeah,
In
no,
the
that was
comics,
a
Superman and
famous
Flash
comic.
had a race. Yes. So I actually kind of liked that nod to the comics in the Whedon version. But I do feel like it doesn't fit the tone of the movie.
No, it doesn't fit this movie.
Yeah.
I like how they got rid of that entire Russian family.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Yeah, although it was
Yes.
so funny at the end when like he was carrying or he was like the Flash was pushing the car, and then like he looks over and Superman's holding like a building. Like that part was funny, but again, like the ending that is now is so much
It's just a
better.
different-
So it
That was
doesn't
a
matter.
different tone. That was
Yes.
the Whedon version of Justice League was filled with a lot of Marvel type humor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Even
Again,
look at like the posters, or even like if you go onto HBO, it's very colorful and like kind of And this one is much like darker.
This one is almost black and white in some places.
Yeah.
Like
You know
it
what's
was
funny
really.
is-
Supposedly there's a black and white version coming.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I hear.
You know what's funny is I remember in the last hero shot where they're all standing on top of the bluff.
Yeah, the building.
over-
Yeah.
Mhm.
looking over at nothing, I guess, just looking at the skyline.
Yeah.
That was shot so devoid of color. It all looked like they were wearing black. I mean, even the Flash looked like he was wearing
Mhm.
black at
Maybe they
that
were.
point. It was hilarious. I mean, just the Snyder and Tim Burton. I think they got kind of the
Yeah.
same color palette they're working with. But anyway, I guess we've gone on this for a while. I love it. This is definitely intriguing conversation. I love hearing that backstory. I didn't hear that. I never knew about that aspect that you guys are talking about. With the,
I will send you a link because that 2 and 3 is
Yeah, it's a very
something.
interesting read.
That was a
Yes.
long article too. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's the one I saw earlier.
I will say that I have appreciated learning that most of Julian's critiques
yes.
were very
Minor.
very like minor, like
And
I don't like that she's wearing Gucci at her day job thing.
Right.
And to be fair, a lot of my criticisms were only in the first act, because it just looked junky to me. And then when I settled in and I just said it is what it is, I kind of just enjoyed it. And again, I enjoyed the third act more, which is funny when you enjoy the third act more than the first two. Because
what's the third act of the 7 chapters?
Exactly.
I wrote down.
Yeah.
Because I did not like at all the red dome scene in the first one, but this one I liked this action scene so much more, and Batman driving and shooting the.
And I'm glad they kept the Aquaman surfing the guy down. That was an epic shot.
That was cool.
That was.
Yeah.
They did change the dialogue between Aquaman and Cyborg because it did sound a little cheesy. It was still a little cheesy, but you know what? You go along for the ride. It's fun just to it is what it is. But I think the consensus is that
Better.
they made a lot more of this movie, and it was finally good to see Zack Snyder's interpretation.
And if someone hasn't seen them, they can watch this one. Like my brother, I was talking about to him today. He hadn't seen the first one, and I was like, "Just watch this one."
Just watch this one. This is the definitive version. No,
I was like, you don't have to watch the first one at all. Just
No.
The first one was a mess, and it was the result of a lot of flawed ideas and
poor decision making.
Flawed ideas, poor decision making, and just quite frankly, tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's where I'll kind of I want to end on this, at least for me, is, I mean, if we're going to score this, which I think we probably should,
yes, we are.
I will totally give it a 92 with the caveat that, I'm working on the 93 to 100 as an A grading scale.
All right.
So I'll give it a 92. No question.
Very good.
Was a major improvement. It really, really changed things. And again, to Zack Snyder's credit, he made his vision as he saw it, for better or for worse. This needed to exist. And to the fans' credit and everybody who was involved in kind of the Snyder Cut campaign, look, to see this whole movie and then to end on that high of Martian Manhunter's kind of reveal and coming out of it, I can't think of another movie where I have been so quickly emotionally juxtaposed, where you go from seeing, this triumphant, everybody survived, Martian Manhunter's coming into the mix, Batman's living in an amazing house with windows that I wouldn't want to clean, but my God, must be amazing, to the For Autumn dedication. I have never gone from feeling so elated and positive to literally tearing up in seconds.
Yeah.
Especially with that version of Hallelujah at the end, which did not fit the movie one iota, but fit the dedication 100%.
Yep.
And for everything Zack had to do to get to this point and to make this movie and to deal with personally, and the amount that the fans who have been a part of this have dedicated to suicide prevention and stuff in the future, like it chokes me up to think about it, what he had to go through and to get to this point. And I've never quite had a movie do that. I think there have been few movies where there's been so much outside influence and contextualization that have made an impact on it. And that probably colors my grading and perception of it, but so be it. Like this film had to happen, and kudos to Zack Snyder. And I just, it was something else.
No, that's great. And I can just definitely, feel how, it impacted you on those levels, and respect that dearly. And no, that's a great, summarization of how it impacted you. And that's the great thing about these movies is you can, leave them, better than you went in before them. And you can, pull things out of them that would only speak to you. And that's, why they're subjective. And or is it objective? No, it's
subjective.
Subjective.
Thank you. Brilliant. I love that. Kenny, what would you score this movie as?
I think I'm going to be up there with Logan. I'm going to give it a 90.
90. All right. Very good. Now, Brianna?
85.
85. See, I got you. And you know what? I'm gonna give it an 82. That's a little high on me, but I will say this again: the hurdles they had to overcome to get it to this point, I give a lot of credit for, and it is much better than the original. Different movie entirely, different tone. Because there was the original one, I am going to grade it at a higher level just because they had to undo a lot, and I give them, and I'm a little more cynical, so I got to kind of wipe that away and try and enjoy it a little more. So I'm going to give it an 82. That gives us a combined score of 87, which is not bad. Not bad. Now, do we want to know what the internet says?
Yeah, what's the internet saying?
Internet is saying 96.
Woo!
Fans.
Very high.
The official critics are giving it a 74.
That seems pretty right.
Yeah. So we're
because the fans are the ones that wanted it, so of course they're going to score it high.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh please. Yeah. I mean, anybody. Let's just say they're motivated reviewers. They're literally responding to getting what they were asking for, which again is fine, because I think they got what they wanted. Is the Zack Snyder version much better? It's win-win.
I will say, like, so I remember watching a couple of friends get into like Twitter wars over the whole like Snyder cut, fandom. And I will say, like, I'm hoping though that I love the fact that it was a fandom that brought this movie to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that a lot of the fandom were under the wrong impression, in that I think a lot of folks were under the impression that there was a completed Snyder cut that just needed minor work to come to life.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't the case. Like, there was a lot of work that had to go into making this movie happen.
$70 million?
Yes, and there isn't on HBO Max. There is a like mini documentary, like special feature that talks about Zack Snyder putting this movie together. So I would implore people to watch that, so you understand that there wasn't a secret hidden edit of the movie that was already completed. It was that Snyder had to leave during post-production, and that meant a lot of the movie, that how he wanted it edited and how he wanted it brought to, did not exist. He literally, like Logan just said, it was something like $70 million he was given to complete the movie. That's a significant budget.
It's multiple movies in some cases.
Yep. Yeah. And it's funny, I didn't mention this earlier, but and again, because there's been a lot of tragedy, with Zack Snyder, but also Ben Affleck having his issues during the filming of this. Tell me if you notice. I mean, I saw Ben Affleck's weight fluctuating, significantly through this. You could tell in the newer scenes he was much leaner. And at the end with Martian Manhunter, I know it's been years that have passed, but he barely looked like Ben Affleck to me. I didn't know if, he lost a lot of weight. 100%. But it did kind of just throw me off when I saw him because I didn't think it was Ben Affleck when I first.
There were scenes that were definitely off.
Yeah.
Whether it was just vocal, I mean, saw some with Ezra Miller, some with Gal Gadot, some with Ben Affleck, where it was just they were shoehorned into the best of their ability, no question.
Right. And you could tell that the scene with Martian Manhunter was definitely done this time. That was not done in the Joss Whedon, because Ben Affleck looks significantly different in this than he did at any time in the movie. And hope he's doing well. Hope he's been battling demons, but hopefully he's on the other side of that. I saw he was in a film a little while ago called The Way Back.
Yes.
As about beautiful film.
Oh, tremendous.
Highly recommend it.
Tremendous.
I was, and again, the cynic in me was like, oh, this is such a PR piece, just trying to rebuild his, his persona. Brilliant film.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason is he took it on, it hits on the heartstrings, and it was so well shot. It was back to his roots, doing like indie films that are just, have heart. So definitely recommend that.
I have a parting question before we wrap.
Absolutely.
How do we feel about the fact that we just rated the Snyder Cut version of Justice League higher than Winter Soldier?
Well, Winter Soldier is just
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier is just one episode. I'm hoping that it's going to build to something significant. And again, maybe we will do a combined review of all the episodes and see what that score is. But no, I love this scoring aspect, and you will see it on our social. We're going to post the scores that we have given, because again, our scores are the only ones that matter, because we're not on the payroll, obviously.
As much as we try, HBO.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's gonna watch this thing and they must be getting sponsored by HBO Max.
Oh, yes,
that would be the dream.
Yes, I mean, Disney, HBO. We're waiting.
I'm not saying we could be bought, but
we could be rented.
We could be rented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe a little leasing. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, Brianna, any parting thoughts on this? Yeah, I mean, we've dissected this thing pretty thoroughly.
I think we've covered it all. It's better.
Yeah, it is better. Again, I think that would be the consensus. Is literally just it's better. Period.
This is the definitive watch this one if you're watching a Justice League.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. And save yourself. Don't watch the Whedon version. Watch the Snyder cut. So great stuff, guys. Well, as always, this means everything, watching these movies with you and talking about them, and really looking forward to going back to our first segment, the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that's going to be an interesting series. I love the grounded stuff. Superheroes are awesome, but I also like when they're, kind of within the realms of physics. So super serum, a hang glider, jetpack, I can deal with that. It's a little easier to wrap my head around than, phasing Martians and, flying aliens. But again, they're all entertaining. And also that is the big truth, is that these are meant to be entertaining. And they should actually bring us together around a shared experience. So out there in the internet, if somebody disagrees with you or has a different take on something, it's cool. There's plenty of things to really be upset about. This isn't one of them. So enjoy the experience, listen to other people's thoughts and comments. And, maybe you won't agree, but maybe you will. Maybe you'll find something else that you come together on. But there's enough division out there. So make these movies something to come together around. That's my little epilogue, if that fits. Anyway, guys, this has been awesome. I want to again thank everybody for watching. Be sure to take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and as always, if it's worthwhile, it's worth binging.